Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Naruto Was Ichigo's Reincarnation. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
White Ichigo Kurosaki could only see white. He searched everywhere and found that he was not in a room but rather an empty plane of existence with no left or right, no up or down, no ground or sky. He simply ponders how he got here as he floats there. He last recalled using his new form to battle ageist Sosuke Aizen one-on-one. Surprisingly, he is outperforming the former Taicho of Squad 5. He ultimately unites with his Zanpakuto Zangetsu to unleash the last Getsuga Tensho at the expense of his abilities, but he failed to anticipate that his soul would become unstable and disintegrate among itself if he didn't return to his body, which was too far away. He bid farewell to all of his friends and fellow Shinigami players before vanishing into thin air. He smiled knowing that his friends and loved ones were safe when his spiritual body broke up into reishi and dispersed into the wind after all of his affairs were resolved. And now, wherever he is, he finds himself. This is what a Shinigami is going to get after they die. Man, this is awful, he thought. Well, I got nothing better to do, he says, closing his eyes to rest since he has no other reason to be awake. But before he can close his eyes to the enticing darkness, he hears a loud voice say, even if you defeated a threat to reality and saved it, doesn't mean it stays safe, but worry not, because when it's in jeopardy you will awaken once again. In fact, so much time has gone by since then that a new era that resembles feudal Japan has replaced the modern world, complete with stoves, microwaves, televisions, and other appliances. Additionally, their only footwear options are boots or sandals, which can be either leather or wood. Furthermore, the people found a way to use their innate energy, which they refer to as chakra, to perform jutsus, which include walking through water or up vertical surfaces, creating illusions, creating duplicates of themselves, and even manipulating the elements. Those who possess this energy are appropriately referred to as ninjas or shinobi. The history lesson is over, though, and let's move on. One of the 5 main hidden villages in the Land of Fire is Konohagakure, also known as the village hidden in the leaves, a rather sizable village that is fortified, but that is to be expected from a village governed by its shinobi. Our main character, Naruto Uzumaki, is 12 years old, has blue eyes, blonde spiky hair, 3 whisker birthmarks on each cheek, slightly tanned skin, and is wearing a black shirt, orange pants, and blue sandals. He is stomping on a man's head on the ground in a training ground. What? Yes, we find Naruto Uzumaki at training ground 3, giving a random guy the shit while his 2 friends lie defeated on the side. He doesn't appear to be happy. Now I want you to apologize, he glares as he cuts off his beating of the alleged leader and kneels down eye level. Guy number 1 says in a smug but terrified tone, F for WWWH what? We were just practicing our taijutsu, and his lackeys nod ferociously in agreement. See that, he says, indicating the memorial stone with the overturned glass vase. It's just a plant, what's the big deal anyway? Scoffs guy number 1. I said the wrong thing. Just a plant, just a plant. Naruto calmly stands up and slams his foot so hard on the offender that it digs deeper and deeper into the ground. If it's just a plant, then why is it by the memorial stone? I'll tell you why, because it was put up for one of the ninja that died for this village, meaning someone left it there for said ninja, and what you did by accidentally knocking it over and leaving it without setting it back up is very disrespectful and something that I will not stand for, he says, removing his foot from guy number 1. Get the fuck out of my sight, he says, and the 3 quickly depart as if the Shinigami were pursuing them. What irony! He turned to the stone as they left the training area, and his demeanor abruptly changed. He scratched the back of his head nervously and said, sorry about that, ninja-san, I'll get another one for you if you'd like. It's quite alright, Naruto. Anyway, it wasn't you that knocked it over in the first place, now was it? He said calmly as he emerged from the bush wearing a blue long-sleeved shirt, blue pants with bandages at the ankles, a green flak jacket, blue sandals, and the most crucial of all, a headband with a metal plate bearing the Konoha symbol engraved on it. When you're dead, we'll be as calm as you can be. As far as Naruto can recall, he has the ability to see ghosts, spirits, and ex-partners when he is dead. They initially perceive him as a monster, just like the other villagers, but after seeing him, they realize that he is actually a good child. They provide him with companionship when he needs it, and they depart in a flash of light, signifying their passing, once they have all of their affairs in order, with Naruto's assistance. He also experiences flashbacks that are not his own. His personality has become more emo, and he has developed unexpected skills like taijutsu, which emphasizes grappling and counterattacks, and kenjutsu on par with Hayate Gecko, which he insists on calling zanjutsu even though he knows it isn't called that. Despite all of his talents, nobody understands how he can pick up a taijutsu form overnight, much less communicate with the dead. The person closest to the shinobi in training is the Sandaime Hokage, or Jiji as he calls him. But even he is unaware of this, even though they still refer to each other as Dobi and Teme. He simply responds, just came naturally. When asked about his abilities, if he were to meet a certain Uchiha, he would accept a friendly spar in order to help each other get better, and they would become friendly rivals. Even though he has fallen in love with Hinata, the Hyuga heiress, he has kept his distance from her in order to shield her from the people who would emotionally harm him. Instead, he looks after her initially. She asked her mother's ghost to protect her so she could move on. Her gentle disposition, her angelic face, which looked adorable when she blushed, her pearl-like eyes, and most importantly, her midnight blue hair, were alluring to him later at the start of the academy days. It was a shame that it wasn't longer, but it didn't matter to him because she was and still is his world. After that day, he watched her whenever he wasn't training, admiring her strength and beauty. In addition to keeping her mother's promise, little did he know that she does the same to him when he trains Sasuke, who caught him staring at her with a clouded expression during class, is the only one who is aware of his affection. Although he kept it a secret, he was still able to tease him occasionally about it. Well, the Genin graduation exams were almost here. This is his third attempt. The first two were unsuccessful due to a technique he was never able to master. Clones or Bushin no Jutsu. After the second attempt, he realized that he had so much chakra that he would always put in too much, which would ruin it no matter how hard he tried to defeat the clone. However, he will pass this time because he has a secret weapon. Naruto answered, true, but then he recalled, oh, ninja-san, I learned the jutsu you taught me. With a raised eyebrow, the ninja said, oh, really, well why don't you show me? After uttering the words, Taju Kage Bushin no Jutsu, and making a modified boar sign with both of his middle and pointer fingers crossed, smoke burst from the training area, and hundreds of Narutos filled it after everything had subsided. Sputtering, ho 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 how, and thinking, he had only a day and he's already mastered the technique, the dead ninja stood there, his jaw hanging and his eyes as big as Naruto's ramen bowls in a stupefied expression of complete disbelief. In fact, he is capable of creating even more clones than Hokage-sama man. This kid is something else. Perhaps this child is a good fit for Konoha's ninja ranks. Congratulations, kid, you not only just mastered a B-rank Kenjutsu, but you also created the S-rank variation of it, and you don't even look winded. He says this after he has recovered from his shock. Naruto, who is not accustomed to the praise, scratches the back of his neck after defeating the sea of clones. Thanks ninja-san, that means a lot. Now tell me, what's different about these clones opposed to the regular clone the academy teaches you? The ninja looks hurt to hear that, knowing the boy's past, but he quickly shakes himself out of those melancholy thoughts. A moment later, Naruto clarified, while the Bushin no Jutsu is just an illusion that uses very little chakra but requires a lot of control which I will never have, the Kage Bushin no Jutsu is solid with its own chakra system, therefore uses a lot more chakra, hence why it's a B-rank Kenjutsu. And when I dispelled them, I remember seeing myself in different angles, leading me to believe that when a clone dispels, I get all their memories, making it ideal for espionage and in my case training, as for some reason I have chakra reserves bigger than all 5 cages combined. Very good Naruto, that's exactly right, now you can pass and finally achieve your dream, the ninja replied. With a genuine smile, Naruto responds, yes, to protect everyone. He goes to the academy for today's graduation exams. After teaching the deceased ninja the jutsu he had learned as soon as he entered the classroom, he sat down in the back, right next to his best friend Sasuke. He was wearing a blue short-sleeve shirt, white shorts, standard ninja sandals, a permanent frown, and a black hairstyle that looked like a duck's ass. Yo Teme, Naruto said. Sasuke responds, HN, Dobi, in his typical manner, but he smirks when he sees how happy his friend is. What's got you in a good mood? Did you finally ask Hinata out on a date? He asks. The remark, shut up Teme, and for your information I finally found a way around my clone problem, makes Naruto's face flush. Sasuke gets excited. Really? So you can finally pass and we'll be one step closer to seeking retribution for what my brother did. Yay that we are Teme, then you can revive your clan, and by the amount of fangirls you have it will be a breeze, Naruto says with a softer expression. HN, Dobi, was all he could say. Naruto glances at his secret crush, Hinata. After their brief daily back and forth, Hinata has a dark blue hairstyle known as a Heim cut, a heavy coat with a fur lining, blue shorts, sandals, and an angelic face with a cute blush. He blushes and quickly looks away as she begins to turn to face him. After a few minutes, Iruka and Mizuki arrive in the classroom. Both are dressed in the traditional Konoha shinobi uniform. The former has brown skin, a horizontal scar above his nose, and brown hair in a pineapple-like ponytail, while the latter has ivory skin, short, light blue hair, and a headband that resembles a bandana to get the children to stop so they can begin the test. Iruka uses his demon head no jutsu. Iruka and Mizuki are seated behind a desk in a different room from Naruto, and Konoha headbands are scattered about. All you have to do is the Bushin no jutsu and you pass, Iruka said next. There is no way the demon brat can do this, Mizuki thought, while Naruto simply nodded. Once he fails, I'll give him false hope by saying something like, there's a makeup exam that involves stealing the forbidden scroll. He gives it to me. I kill him, and give it to Orochimaru-sama. Not only am I held a hero for slaying Kyuubi, but I also get more power. Either way, I win in the end. The aforementioned demon brat then interrupts Mizuki, saying, Anyo, Iruka-sensei, as long as I make 3 clones I pass, right? With a smile, Iruka said, that's right, all you need is to produce at least 3 clones and you pass. They were surprised by the unexpected question. What's he up to? Mizuki asked, perspiring as he spoke. If he fails, Kuso, I might have to go to Plane B, which is a bit too risky for me. After taking a deep breath, Naruto said, okay, here it goes, Kage Bushin no Jutsu. He used the jutsu, and 3 exact replicas of himself emerged in smoke puffs, appearing to be alive. Iruka is currently bursting with pride at Naruto's ability to create clones, even more so than the fact that they were exact replicas. Iruka, that's not the Bushin no Jutsu, he had to perform that technique to pass so he fails, says Mizuki, who expresses his opinions more vocally. But before Iruka could finish his sentence, Naruto interrupted. If I remember correctly, Iruka said if I can create at least 3 clones, I pass. While it wasn't the clone that was taught in the academy, it was still a clone, so I pass, right Iruka-sensei? Iruka gestured for Naruto to come forward and said, congratulations Naruto, you pass, concluding with a kind smile. Naruto's right Mizuki. I did say 3 clones but I didn't specify the type of clone, he said. Thanks Iruka-sensei, Naruto said as he proudly accepted the headband and wrapped it around his forehead before leaving the room. Mizuki was plotting as he left the room, saying, Kuso, well Plane B it is, and he went out to catch a specific graduate. With the exception of 3, every child who graduated from the academy is meeting with their parents or guardians to demonstrate that they are now ninjas. Because he lacks a parent or guardian, Naruto doesn't give a damn about what people think. That's just the way he is. He also doesn't care if he receives praise. Sasuke didn't want to boast to the entire village about it when he could have used that time to train, since his entire family, aside from his brother, who committed the crime, had been killed during his first year at the academy. In order to avoid the stern looks from her clan's men, her father's rigorous training regimen, and her cousin Neji's remarks about fate and her weakness, Hinata also wants to avoid her clan as much as possible. The desire to end one's life is nearly sufficient. Her sister Hanabi, the only person in her clan she loves and admires, and her crush Naruto, who motivated her to put up with the mockery and hatred from the Hyuga clan for her sister's sake, are the only things standing in her way. Why is Hinata depressed now? Despite passing, she received the lowest grades in the class and was dubbed the dead last, because she was unable to stay awake for the exam due to the clan elder's training session the day before. To set an example for the other branch members, her father will beat her, brand her with the Kage bird seal, and then immediately use it on her if he finds out. Now that she was on the edge of tears and about to pass out, someone interrupted her by saying, You okay Hinata? Mizuki-sensei. What are you doing here? She asked, wiping away her tears as she turned to see Mizuki standing beside her. Tell me what's wrong, it might make you feel better, Mizuki said in a soothing voice. I just heard sobbing and found you here. She ends her sob while Mizuki holds her awkwardly. Well sniff I'm sniff I'm the dead last in the class. Sob and sob. If my sob father finds sniff out he'll punish me, she exclaims. He trailed off to give the girl hope, saying, well, maybe there's a way for me to give extra credit, maybe I shouldn't. Sniff, what is it Sniff? I'll do anything if it means I don't slander the Hyuga name, she exclaims when she receives extra credit, pleading with her sensei to spare her from the suffering her father would inevitably inflict on her. He then says, okay, just because you're my favorite student all you have to do is steal the forbidden scroll in the Hokage's library and meet me outside of the village at a worn-out shack and I'll bump up your grade enough to make you the top kunoichi once I see you have the scroll, and if you're caught by anyone you fail immediately, got it? He receives a nice guy response from Hinata and offers her a map of the Hokage Tower and the gate guard rotations in order to assist her. Unbeknownst to them, A black-haired, black-eyed ninja wearing Konoha gear and a chain around his chest hears everything thinking, Naruto won't like this. He rushes to warn the person in question. Now that she's outside Konoha, close to the shack Mizuki instructed her to go to, Hinata is panting heavily from escaping the village undetected. However, she succeeded, earned the extra credit, avoided being the last person to die, avoided having the Kaj bird seal applied to her, had her father abandon her, and, most importantly, was able to keep her younger sister safe. A rustle from the bushes abruptly broke her from her mussing, and Iruka emerged from the bush. "Aha, Naruto, I found," he began to yell, assuming it was the Orange Menace, but was taken aback when he saw the last person he would have expected with the scroll on her back. "Hinata, why?" was all he could manage to stutter. "Anyo, are you here to grade me on my extra credit that Mizuki told me about?" asked Hinata, who assumed he was there to cover for Mizuki. Iruka was even more perplexed by this. "Mizuki, now why would," he said, but before he could finish, he heard a faint whistling in the air, which made him extremely alert. "Get down!" he yelled, pushing her aside so that a number of kunai and shuriken could strike him instead. A figure suddenly emerges on a branch near the closest tree, revealing himself to be Mizuki. He is wearing 2 enormous shuriken tied to his back, and he mumbles, "Kuso, I missed, so the genin won't hear him." It's unfortunate that Iruka heard and realized, so that's how it is. Ignoring the Down Academy instructor, Mizuki turns to Hinata and says, "Give me the scroll." Says, "No, it was all a trick. Whatever you do, don't give him the scroll," after realizing what he's after. What's going on?" asks Hinata in terror, unsure of what is happening. "Mizuki is betraying Konoha. He used you to get the forbidden scroll to use its secrets against us, and there was never extra credit in the first place," Iruka tells her sternly before he begins to pull the metal projectiles that are holding him to the shack. "WWWHWHWHY" is all Hinata can do as she begins to shake like a leaf in terror. After telling the greatest joke of the century, Mizuki bursts into laughter. "Why? Because I hate Konoha. Everything about Konoha the Hokage is too soft, the shinobi are too weak, and they let that thing freely roam the streets." He spits out like a venom as he begins to calm down. "And once I get the scroll to my master, he will give me the power eye," he says, but before he can finish, a black and orange blur kicks him off the branch, sending him crashing to the ground. The blur showed Naruto holding a rusty katana in his right hand. "Shut the fuck up. No one wants to hear you talk," the blur said. "You guys alright?" he asks, turning to face the other two. Hinata utters, "Naruto-kun," hardly more than a whisper, in her shock and awe. "Yeah, we're fine, but Naruto, how did you know where to find us?" says the other, trembling from shock at the display. "I have eyes and ears all over the village. I also know Mizuki Teme is betraying us for the snake pedo. Probably wants to be his next boy toy or something." Naruto responds cryptically as he leaps to the ground. Iruka breaks out in a cold sweat, and Hinata blushes deeply at what her crush has said. Now that Mizuki has gotten himself off the ground, he is furious because he heard the final insult. "Orochimaru-sama is not a pedophile, you demon." After saying, "Well, you haven't denied wanting to be his next boy toy," Naruto grins. "I'm going to kill you, but before I do, tell me why you're hated and feared," was Mizuki's final straw. When Iruka realizes what the traitor is talking about, he is interrupted by Naruto. "No, I don't know," he says, and Mizuki smirks, thinking he has him, but it vanishes quickly after he continues, "But I don't give a shit either. It doesn't matter whether if I'm human, a demon, or a monster. I'll protect this village and the people I care about regardless of who or what I am." "Naruto, you have made this academy instructor and your village proud." Iruka and Hinata were both moved by his speech about standing up for everyone no matter what people do. "Well, you may not care, but she might, and once she knows she'll hate you just like all the other villagers," says Mizuki as his plane catches fire. A sick smile appears on his face as he notices how Hinata is staring at Naruto and how protective he is of her. Naruto then begins to stiffen and turns to face his beloved, fearing the worst. "Hinata, wonder why Naruto's hated?" he asks. Iruka shouted, "No, Mizuki, you know that's forbidden," before she could respond. Disregarding Iruka's pleas, he continued, "Ever hear of the story of how Kyuubi attacked the village 12 years ago, but the Yondaime killed it at the cost of his own life?" She nodded with her head trembling. "Well, it was all a lie. The Yondaime didn't kill it as he couldn't. Instead, he chose a baby that was born and sealed it in the newborn. Then after that was done, a law was made to forbid anyone to talk about it, even mention who the baby was." "Now who was that baby, you ask? It's none other than the very boy you love. You are in love with Kyuubi." Naruto is now shaken by the revelation. but he is more concerned about the possibility that the girl he is in love with will hate him than he is about possessing the most potent Biju in the shinobi world. Please, I couldn't handle it if you hate me, he says. Even if he's Kyuubi, I still love him as he wasn't the Kyuubi 12 years ago, you sad delusional man, was the statement that shocked everyone the most. Iruka smiles at the sight before him, and Naruto's eyes are now welling with tears of happiness. Mizuki, however, scowls because even the demon brat receives more attention than he does. He reaches for his enormous shrunken and prepares to toss it, saying, if that's the way you want it then die demon whore, as it spins in Hinata's direction. Mizuki, who heard a sickening thud following by pain, looks at the area where he feels pain and discovers a kunai sticking almost all the way in Naruto's chest. However, before it could reach her, Naruto moves in front of her and deflects it with his rusty katana, destroying it in the process. He hears the feminine cry, Naruto-kun, as he drops to his knees on the edge of death. However, those who are watching will never forget what transpires next when Naruto's face is covered in a white substance oozing from his mouth, nose, and eyes. He abruptly releases a burst of intense blue energy. Bandages are then wrapped around him from the ground, giving him a mummy-like appearance. Finally, chains are added to reinforce the bandages, and the energy stops leaking as though the new bindings are keeping it from escaping. As this chakra, Iruka is now afraid of what is happening to his former pupil. No, it is too dense and heavy to be that. Is it possible that the Kyuubi has escaped? This feels more hollow than anything else. If it were red, it would feel evil. Kyuubi is going to kill us all. Mizuki is now spitting his pants. Naruto-kun, please don't die, said Hinata, who was also afraid, although for a different reason. The mindscape of Naruto. When he wakes up, Naruto finds himself in what appears to be a futuristic city with skyscrapers made of steel and glass. What's really strange is that gravity is pushing against the side of the building he was on, but he also feels a little homesick. Okay, now where am I? He asked himself, not expecting a response. You're in your subconscious, Ichigo, or is it Naruto now? He was surprised to hear. When Naruto turns to face the voice, he sees a tall, middle-aged man with a lean build. His face is long, his cheekbones are prominent, his hair is unkempt, and his black hair is long and ragged. He has pale skin. He wears a long flowing black overcoat with a red tint that flares out into ragged ends, black pants, gray boots, narrow sunglasses, and a tattered white undershirt with high collars. Sorry, wasn't expecting an answer, but who are you, old man? I feel like I know you from somewhere. And why did you just call me Ichigo? He says, calming down a bit from the fear. I would hope you would still remember me. Anyway, it's about time you awaken the part of you that's been dormant inside the deep reaches of your soul, laughs the elderly man, as Naruto calls him. What are you talking about, old man? Asks Naruto, bewildered. Then he cries in terror, are you Kyuubi? Yes, Naruto. Everyone gets reincarnated at one point or another, but we were brought back for a purpose, the man says, laughing even harder and shaking his head negatively. No, Naruto, I'm not, and I have been with you ever since your last life. Naruto repeats those final two words as though posing a question. Curious, he asks, what purpose? The man places his hand on Naruto's shoulder. To protect the world from a future enemy that threatens the very existence of both the living and the dead. It was threatened before a few hundred years ago, but the last Shinigami, or as you know him as the Rakudo Sennin, sealed up Hueco Mundo, Hell and the Soul Society, so no more hollows would come to the human world to jeopardize its safety ever again. And he also put a powerful sealing spell so pluses, or spirits, can move on without the help of a Shinigami. The only hollow left was so powerful it had to be sealed in the Sennin himself. Before he died, he separated it into 9 lesser hollows, or as you call them, Biju, but we saved reality thousands of years before that. As he goes on with his explanation, Naruto begins to experience a splitting headache and flashbacks to a previous life, including pluses, hollows, Shinigami and their Zanpakuto spirits, all of his friends who have supported him in times of need, the 2 women he fell in love with, and all of the adventures in Hueco Mundo and the Soul Society. He looked at the elderly man well after it was over and said, Hey old man, can you tell me your name? I want to see if I can still hear it. When the elderly man received the message, of course, he grinned. Actual world, they heard the muffled cry, Zanjetsu, and everyone went blind for 5 seconds, but now the energy that Naruto is producing is leaking out of the bandages, illuminating the area with a bright blue light. When the light faded, a figure that resembled Naruto appeared. He was dressed in a black kimono over white underwear tied with a white sash at the waist, white tabi socks, and straw sandals. He had a red strap across his chest that resembled a rosary, and he was carrying a sword that resembled an enormous, elegant cleaver without a proper hilt or tsuba. The sword was about the owner's height, and it had a cloth wrapping on the tang and a makeshift sheath around the blade. Additionally, He is wearing a bony mask that resembles a skull. Of what kind? Anyone can speculate. That appears to suck in your soul. Everyone was quiet until Hinata said, "And Naruto-kun?" to break the awkward silence. As a response, he draws his sword, revealing a black blade with a silver edge. When the cloth unwraps and shrinks to a manageable size, he then slams the blade's butt cap onto his mask, shattering it and exposing Naruto's whisker-marked face. "You guys alright?" he says, and the two nod their heads in agreement. After receiving confirmation, he turned to face the horrified Mizuki and said, "Then I'll finish this quickly." "He's going to kill me. Oh my Kami, he's going to kill me," Mizuki says, too terrified to think of a counterattack. "I couldn't give a damn what you called me or what you do to me, and I could forgive you if you betrayed the village, but I'll never forgive you for using and almost killing the one girl I love," Naruto says, raising his blade as it gathers the same energy as before. Hinata breaks down in tears at this statement because she is happy that the boy she admires loves her back. Getsuga Tensho. He then released the energy that was on its way to Mizuki by swinging his blade in a downward arc. "Fuck me," was all he could think before it struck him. Then the destructive blue energy engulfed the area he laid in, burning everything in its path. Only a clear path remained after it was finished. No bushes, trees, or even grass were spared. Iruka's only thought was, "Gosh, did that just happen?" He will require a substantial amount of alcohol before the evening is over. After placing the blade back on his back with the white cloth covering it as though he had willed it to, Naruto approaches Hinata and plants the most intense kiss he could manage on her. She was initially shocked, but as she got involved, all of her issues with her clan vanished. To their dismay, they held each other as if their lives depended on it until 5 minutes later, when they parted ways. "Please, let me stay with you. Take me and my sister away from my father and my clan. If I come back, then sniff, they'll kill me and my sister will be alone. I have to be there for my sister to protect her, because that's what big sisters are for, right?" Hinata is the first to break the cozy silence. She ends up sobbing uncontrollably on Naruto's chest as he soothes her and eases her emotional suffering. He kisses her forehead, says, "Let's go see Gramps, okay," and the two of them head to the Hokage Tower with the Forbidden Scroll in hand. "I'll talk to Gramps to see what we can do. If that doesn't work, I'll storm in the Hyuga compound myself and get your sister out of there and protect you from everyone that wants to hurt you, I promise." Iruka eventually recovers from his shock after a few minutes. As the Naras would say, troublesome, he says, and leaves to see the Hokage, who will serve as a witness to this wild night. 3 days have passed since Mizuki betrayed the village and was destroyed by Naruto Uzumaki, who unknowingly but independently triggered his Shinigami abilities, which use Riryoku instead of chakra, at this early hour of the morning. Riryoku is pure spiritual energy, which is more powerful because it isn't diluted by physical energy. With it, you could move quickly from one location to another to level an entire forest with fire that is so hot it's blue, something that no jutsu, not even Amaterasu, could accomplish. Chakra is a mixture of equal parts spiritual and physical energy used to perform jutsus that can either deceive an opponent or manipulate the elements surrounding them. Shinigami are normally unable to generate physical energy for chakra because they lack physical bodies, but Naruto managed to maintain his body and possesses so much Riryoku that he can use all of his physical energy with an equivalent amount of Riryoku to the former 2 cages now, but with greater control over it and still have as much as he did when he was Ichigo, if not more. He also unlocked all of his memories as Ichigo Kurosaki, his previous life, in addition to his Shinigami abilities. His heart ached for his friends he missed at first, but when he thought about his new friends in this life, he let go of the old ones and welcomed the new ones, especially since they reminded him of his old ones. For example, Sasuke reminded him of Uryu. Kiba is similar to Renji. Lee, the dead last of last year's class, acts like Keigo, much to Naruto's chagrin, and Guy, the sensei of said dead last, is even worse. He acts like his old man. Fortunately, he is not in the wake-up call. However, Hinata is the ideal combination of Orihime and Rukia, the two girls he loved. She possesses the grace and poise of Rukia, as well as her determination and modesty, and the kind, domineering, shy personality, looks, and ability to read someone like a book just by looking at them. Wearing only a shirt and boxers, he arose from his now queen-size bed in his new home to discover Hinata sleeping soundly next to him. What had transpired over the past 2 days made him smile. Flashback, 3 days after the Mizuki incident. Naruto, Hinata, and a very perplexed Iruka enter the Hokage's office. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage and village leader, is behind the desk that holds a ton of paperwork, and much more after this meeting is over. He has a very old face, white hair, white robes with red trim, and a tricorned hat that is white except for the edges and the front with a white kanji 4-fire. He breathed a sigh of relief at all the paperwork. Hello Naruto-chan. Hinata-chan. And Iruka, thank you for returning the scroll. Hinata-chan. I know it wasn't your fault, so any chargers ageist you were dropped, and you along with Naruto-chan and Iruka get a B rank added to your recorded, and you get paid as well. In deference to the village chief, Hinata bowed and said, thank you Hokage-sama. Please, there's no need to be so formal. I'm just happy there's at least one other person that made their way to Naruto-chan's heart despite knowing of his burden. Hiruzen concludes in a dejected tone, waving his hand. About that Gramps, we need to talk, Naruto says in a chilly, lethal tone at this point. Knowing that it was inevitable, the Sandaime sighs and says, before you say anything, I plan to tell you soon and I'm sorry. Before he could finish, Naruto intervened. First off, I don't care whether the fox is sealed inside me or not, and I understand that the Yondaime did it to protect his village, which I respect greatly. Secondly, you may have kept this important information from me, but you did it to protect my innocence and kept me ignorant to allow me to have a normal childhood. You may have failed in that regard, but you have good intentions and I harbor no ill will towards you, and third of all, it's not about that. He blinked and thought, well, he took it better than I thought, before posing the crucial query, if it's not about that, then what could it be about? In order to prepare for the worst, Naruto inhaled deeply before saying, it's about Hinata. I have to get her out of her clan along with her sister or they'll place the Kaj bird seal on her and the strain it causes will kill her. To calm himself, Hiruzen smoked a pipe and said, I would love to help you, but you know I can't interfere with clan affairs. Replied, I know, which is why I have a plane, but for that plan to work I need to know if I have any valuable information you've been keeping for me, like if my name is worth anything, who my parents are, whether they left me an inheritance or not. And don't give me any bullshit excuse like I'm not ready to know or it's for my own good. We know how I took the whole Kyuubi thing, and if it can save Hinata, consequences be damned. Besides, you watched how I took down Mizuki on that peeping crystal ball of yours, right? When Naruto unleashed a devastating attack that destroyed not only Mizuki but also a significant portion of the forest, the Sandaime cries, okay, but I request Iruka and Hinata-chan leave. Iruka bows and walks away, but before Hinata can leave, Naruto says, actually Gramps, I want Hinata to hear this. She stood by me when she was told about my tenet, and besides I may need emotional support for this and I'll just tell her afterwards. Sorry about that, I sensed 3 others in the room after you got your Anbu to leave. I just flared up my chakra creating an invisible weight to stop their breathing and knock them out. Looks like I still need some work on controlling it, Naruto said, lying about the part where he used chakra. The Sandaime sighs in defeat and gestures all of his Anbu to leave, but as he is about to close the door, he feels an invisible pressure pulling him down. Upon closer inspection, he discovers that Naruto is the source of the pressure. In order to extract as much information as possible from the root Anbu, Hiruzen nods in comprehension, calls some of his Anbu to transport the other 3 to Ibiki, and prepares his response to his former adversary Danzo. Now that everything's in order, I'll tell you about your parents Naruto-chan, but remember you too. This is a S-class secret, with the exception of Naruto-chan here. Tell anyone else without my consent, is punishable by death, is that understood? Hiruzen said after locking all the doors and windows and turning on the office's sound barrier. Meekly, Hinata said, Hi, Hokage-sama. The Sandaime exhaled deeply, okay. Your mother is named Kushina Uzumaki, a kunoichi originating from Uzushiyobakura village hidden by whirling tides. Believe it or not, she was the last Jinchuriki of Kyuubi before you. This got reactions of shock from the 2. Before you say anything, something happened that night that caused the Kyuubi to escape from Kushina during childbirth. Of what it is I don't know, but unfortunately she didn't survive as she helped seal the fox into you by Sai your father. The room became so quiet that you could hear a pin drop from across the room. Hinata sensed Naruto's tension and held his hand to ease it. Should have saw that coming. If I were him I would have done the same thing, said Naruto. Breaking the awkward silence after a few minutes, this surprised both Hinata and Hiruzen. I mean, why ask somebody to do something that you're not even willing to do? Thanks old man for telling me. Now all I need to know is if they left me something when they died. Hiruzen is perplexed as to how a 12-year-old could process such information without at least losing his mind, but he simply faced it head on without even erupting into a blind rage. He beams, you would be very proud. Yes, they left you a large sum of money from the missions they saved up in a scroll that I carry on their behalf, and a house at the edge of the village that's guarded by seals and can only be opened by your chakra. It not only fully furnished, but it has a library that holds an impressive collection of scrolls that hold all kinds of jutsus, taijutsu and kenjutsu katas, and the Uzumaki clan Fuinjutsu scroll. Old man, my plane is going to work, but I need my inheritance to make it work. Naruto says with a lottery-winning smile. Okay. First off, Hinata, how much does your father value both you and your Imouto? Hiruzen nods. Hinata's state of mind worsens. He thinks that I'm worthless, I know that, and he probably thinks the same for my Imouto, because I overheard him saying he wants a male heir and is trying to court one of the main house women. So far to our relive he's struck out, but I don't know how long that'll last. If someone offered a large sum for you and Hanabi, would he accept? Naruto inquires. The daring question now takes Hinata by surprise, but she quickly recovers and responds without missing a beat. Yes, he would do it just to get rid of us. Where is this all going, Naruto-chan? Is the Sandame's direct question after he has had enough of what he perceives to be pointless inquiries. I need you to inform Hiyashi Teme that the Namikaze clan head that he has an offer that he can't refuse. He turns to Hinata, for now go home, and before you say anything I'll have a few cage bushins hanged into bugs so if something happens I'll be right over to stop it. She nods and he turns to the Sandame. If Hiyashi takes the bait he'll invite the clan head to the Hyuga compound to discuss business. Then during the meeting the clan head, who will be myself in a special henge to buy you two as servants to the Namikaze clan, and I'll do my best to get you unsealed. That way no one gets hurt and it's done with the least amount of damage. Both were shocked at both the brilliance and boldness of the plan that Naruto of all people came up with, and if that doesn't work I'm afraid it's plan B, which would be destroy the whole Hyuga clan and flee the village with both Hinata and Hanabi and employ ourselves as either Iwa or Kumo shinobi, and you don't want that, do you? He asks with one of his eyebrows raised. Okay. I'll pass the message to Hiyashi on another note. The abilities you unlocked as well as the state of dress. Hiruzen sighs at the idea of one of his enemies holding the remaining Hyuga clan and Kyuubi Jinchuriki, while Konoha loses its other dojutsu-based clan, further crippling them since they already lost nearly all of the Uchiha clan save one. Kekkei Genkei, and leave it at that, and before you ask, no I will not use the CRA to revive my clan. Hinata is enough for me. Naruto said before he could finish. Hiruzen nodded in understanding as Hinata blushed automatically, thinking perverted thoughts. After saying, okay, if that is all, you may leave, the Sandame stood up to take out the seals that made the office more secure than an Akamichi's pants. He then went to his desk drawer, took out a scroll that contained a key, tossed it to Naruto, and proceeded to the Yondaime's picture. There, he removed a safe that was reinforced by a blood seal, opened it, and took out the only item that was inside. That is all the money your parents left you, Hinata said, astonished to see a giant scroll twice as large as the Forbidden Scroll. If she had to guess, the amount of money contained in the scroll would be sufficient to buy out the Hyuga clan 3 times over. On the other hand, Naruto simply accepted it and strapped it to his shoulder. And old man, to make this easier don't mention the B-rank mission she did to him so his value of her doesn't go up. Naruto told the elderly man as they were leaving. The village chief nodded in agreement, and they departed. I'm too old for this shit, said the elderly leader, returning to his desk and settling into his chair. Hiruzen made a cage bushin and stabbed Zangetsu in said clone, changing it into Zangetsu's human form. The following day, Hiruzen told Naruto that Hiyashi was intrigued by the offer and wanted to meet with him as soon as possible. In order to negotiate for the clan head's daughters, Zangetsu went to the Hyuga compound. Surprisingly, he was able to get them unsealed by claiming that he could do it himself and that their eyes were weak anyhow. He agreed, but the price was increased, even though he had to save the 2 trapped here for his master because his will also belongs to Naruto. The best part is that Hiyashi didn't know. During the remaining time, Naruto practiced his other skills, such as his Shunpo or Flash Step, Zanjutsu with the Kenjutsu scrolls in the Jutsu library, and meditation with Zangetsu to strengthen their partnership. He also studied Fuinjutsu and discovered that he was naturally skilled at it. Thus far, he has been able to make storage scrolls and homemade paper bombs. Additionally, he trained Hanabi and Hinata to become stronger so they could protect themselves in his absence. Without the assistance of cage bushins and Naruto's naturally abundant reserves, it would be impossible to accomplish that in 3 days. Final flashback. He was pondering the events leading up to this day when he failed to notice Hinata awaken from her sleep until she yawned sweetly. Morning, Naruto-kun. Morning, Hinaheim. Today is the day we get placed on our teams, and we got an hour to get ready, he responds, turning to face his sweetheart, who is dressed in a lavender nightgown. She stands up and gives them a passionate kiss on the lips until they hear the well-known voice say, "Ew, get a room you too." Hanabi, who resembles a chibi Hinata but has long brown hair, is wearing a sleeveless blue versus neck shirt with mesh armor underneath, blue shorts, and sandals. They pause and head toward the source of the disturbance. The youngest person in the house catches them, and they blush. Unexpectedly, Hinata retorted, "How can we get a room if we are doing it in our room, Imouto?" Naruto-ni-san's rubbing off of you a little too much, don't you think? Is Hanabi's turn to blush in shame? With a pout, Naruto mockingly asks, "Ah, am I that bad firecracker?" Naruto's moniker, "Shut up Fishcake, nobody asked you," earns Hanabi a tick mark on her forehead. "And that's why I call you that," he says, beginning to pat her head before abruptly stepping back to prevent her bite. Yikes, feisty one are ya. With her arms crossed and her gaze turned away, she murmurs, "You know, if you don't get ready you're going to be late." "You're right. Get out so we can get ready and we'll be off okay firecracker," Naruto says, glancing at his alarm clock. She muttered, "Whatever Fishcake," and walked away. When Hinata saw Naruto and her sister engaged in a verbal altercation, she sighed but grinned. She wished they got along better, but they kept her life interesting. "I'll go change in the bathroom," she said, taking her necessary clothes. Then going to the bathroom in the bedroom they share and shutting the door for privacy. Despite her love for Naruto, she isn't yet ready for him to see her nude. When they first arrived at the academy, Naruto was dressed in his black shiakusho, tabi, straw sandals, zanjetsu hanging on his back with the red strap, and a forehead protector on his forehead. Hinata was dressed similarly, and Naruto thought her big jacket was adorable with zanjetsu on the floor. Leaning on the desks behind him, they enter the classroom, find 2 seats by Sasuke, and decide to save him from the one thing he despises as much as his brother, fangirls, by sitting next to him. "Yo teme. HN, Dobi," he says. Then the strange sight and Naruto's new appearance catch his attention. "Did you finally ask her out after all this time, and what's with the new look and strange sword?" he asks. Sasuke nods in agreement but raises an eyebrow at Naruto and Hinata as Naruto sighs and responds clearly, "Long fucking story." Sasuke was about to yell when he realized that Naruto had answered the unasked question in a whisper because he didn't want it to be known yet. "Yes, we're together, and after some events that happened 3 days ago we along with her sister Hanabi live together," he said, covering his mouth before he could. "And before you say anything, if word got out that 2 Hyugas are living with me, unsealed no less, Hiyashi will be on me like white on rice and do everything in his power to get them back, and I will never let that happen since he abuses them, got it?" Sasuke nodded and Naruto took his hand away from his mouth. After sitting there for several minutes, they finally hear the well-known high-pitched cries, "Move it Ino pig," saying, "Up yours billboard brow," were Sakura and Ino, 2 of Sasuke's biggest admirers. Wearing a red keep-out dress with short sleeves and white circular designs with a zipper, Sakura, who has long, bright pink hair, bright green eyes, and fair skin, is dressed in tight, dark green shorts and a forehead protector that covers the metal plate on top of her head. Ino has turquoise eyes, fair skin, long blonde hair in a ponytail that reaches her waist, bangs that cover the right side of her face, small hoop earrings, a short purple blouse that resembles a vest with a raised collar, a skirt with the sides cut off, bandages on her legs and stomach, purple and white elbow warmers, and a forehead protector around her waist that serves as a belt. Naruto swears he saw electricity shoot out of them as their eyes collide, creating a current, and they are glaring at each other from forehead to forehead. "I want to sit next to Sasuke-kun. No, I want to sit with Sasuke-kun." They continued doing this for 5 minutes before Naruto lost patience. Fortunately, no one else was impacted by the Ryotsu fluctuation, but the rest of the class was shocked that someone had managed to silence those 2 before Iruka arrived. He used a small amount of his Ryotsu, or spiritual pressure, to instill fear in them. "Shut up and sit the fuck down," he said. After that, Shikamaru, who has a lazy expression, black hair in a pineapple ponytail, a green-lined mesh t-shirt underneath a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges, a circle with a line through it on the back and sleeves, brown pants, and blue sandals, gets up and claps for Naruto for finally stopping the Sasuke fangirls. All of the male students then join in, and they soon start chanting, "Naruto," repeatedly to express their gratitude, but all of the female students, with the exception of Hinata, glare at the cheering males. Iruka enters this scene and says, "All right, quiet." He then looks at the class, which is completely silent, and asks, "All right, what did I miss?" He clears his mind and begins his speech by expressing his pride in everyone's graduation from the academy and saying, "You know what, I don't want to know." Naruto ignored it and grasped Hinata's hand, sensing her anxiety, likely related to the teams. He gives Sasuke a sidelong glance and mouths the words, "Thank you," in appreciation that Naruto frightened away the most obstinate fangirls in the entire village. When he heard his name called, he suddenly paid attention. Team 7 will be Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Namikaze, they said, smiling at each other and joining the same team. Everyone knew that the head of the Hyuga clan had sold both of his daughters to the Namikaze clan as servants to the clan. And Sasuke Uchiha, he said, disappointed that he was on the same team as the last Uchiha. The fangirls glared at Hinata with their daggers until Naruto released some of his Ryatsu as he exhaled. Sasuke said, "Your sensei will be Kakashi Hitaki." He was unaware that he was grateful that he didn't have to deal with any fangirls on his team because the only woman on the team was already seeing his best friend and teammate. Naruto grinned and said, "I'll be taking Dad's only surviving student. I'm sure the old man is involved. I know enough about him, at least, to pass his bell test." Team 8 will consist of Shino Aburame, Iruka adds, who is the tallest member of his graduating class and has fair skin. He wears a sea green jacket with a high, upturned collar, dark bushy brown hair, and dark, narrow eyes that are typically shielded by dark sunglasses. Kiba Inuzuka is a ferocious-looking boy with messy brown hair, sharp black eyes with vertical slit-like pupils, pronounced canine teeth, and distinct red fang markings on his cheeks. He wears a gray coat with a fur hood that is usually placed on his head, over an apparent plate of armor and fishnet undershirt, along with blue sandals, a blue forehead protector, and a small white puppy named Akamaru that looks like a Great Pyrenees dog with a brown nose. And Sakura Haruno, your sensei, is Kurenai Yuhi. There was a yell of, "What?" followed by a whack, as reveling Kiba slammed his head against his desk, cursing his luck, and an annoying laugh from Ino, who was having fun of her rival's bad luck. A plump boy with swirl marks on his cheeks and spiky brown hair is wearing brown shorts, a long white scarf, a short-sleeved green jacket over a white shirt with his clan's required kanji for food on it, small hoop earrings, and bandages wrapped around his legs and forearms. Team 9 is still in circulation. Team 10 Shikamaru Nara, Shoji Akamichi. The statement reads, "And Ino Yamanaka, your sensei, will be Asuma Sarutobi." This is followed by a chorus of "No" from Ino, "Take that, Ino pig," Shanaru, from a happy Sakura, and a "Tisk, troublesome women," from a frustrated Shikamaru. His forehead protector is also worn around his head like a bandana, with tufts of his hair protruding. "Okay, your assigned sensei will be here in around an hour, so enjoy lunch with your future teammates to get to know them better, as they'll stick to you till death. Well, I'm going to miss you all. Good luck, and again congratulations on making it to your first step to being shinobi of this village," everyone chanted as their academy instructor left the room. Everyone waited for their senseis after lunch with their teams. 10 minutes later, Team 10 was won by a man with brown eyes, short black hair with spikes, and a beard. He was dressed in the traditional Konoha uniform, with his sleeves rolled up halfway up, bandages wrapped around the arms of his sleeves, a white sash with a black circle with the black kanji for fire written in it around his waist, and a forehead protector around his forehead. And there is a woman with long, black, shoulder-length wild hair, extremely distinctive red eyes with a ring in them, and makeup that includes purple eyeshadow and red lipstick. She is wearing a red mesh armor blouse that only shows the right sleeve, and over it is a very broad material that looks like bandages with a rose thorn-like pattern. Her hands and upper thighs are also covered in bandages, and her forehead protector was taken by Team 8. Everyone, with the exception of Team 7, has left for their senseis. After 30 minutes, Sasuke gave a face fault and Hinata turned red as a tomato, but they both agreed when Naruto pulled out a deck of cards and asked, "Well, we may be here for a while, so who's up for a game of strip poker?" After 2 hours, Sasuke was wearing nothing but his blue boxers with cats all over them. Hinata was wearing purple panties and an undershirt over mesh armor, and Naruto was only wearing his Hakama pants. She also had tissue paper stuffed up her nostrils to stop a severe nosebleed when they reveal their hands. Sasuke yells in exasperation and is ready to take off his only piece of clothing, but a man at the door diverts their attention. He wears the typical Konoha shinobi outfit, which includes a mask that covers most of his face, a forehead protector that is slanted to cover his left eye, and a pair of Anbu gloves with metal plates on the back of his hand. He has gray hair that appears to be natural and spiked up, seemingly defying gravity. "My first expression of you guy is," he pauses for dramatic effect, then says, "This'll be fun, meet me on the roof once you get changed, of course." In a cheerful tone, he is sporting a lazy look as he approaches the 3 new generation. However, as he turns to go, he turns to face Sasuke and says, "Oh, and Sasuke. Nice boxers," giving Sasuke his well-known eye smile before leaving a laughing Uzumaki and a red Uchiha. The 3 went to the roof to meet their sensei, Kakashi. After getting dressed, the genin was seated on a bench with Naruto in the center, Sasuke on the right, and Hinata on the left. Kakashi began by saying, "Well, to start us off, why don't you tell me about yourselves?" After everyone had settled in. Hinata, unsure of what they wanted their sensei to know, said, Anyo, why don't you tell us about yourself? I mean that way we know what to say from your example. Well, I'm Kakashi Hitaki. I have no desire to tell you my likes and dislikes, my dreams for the future. As for my hobbies, I have lots of hobbies, he began, accepting the reasoning of the former Hyuga. All we learned was his name, thought Hinata and Sasuke as they criticized each other. By saying, seriously that's it Inu, to be honest I never thought of you as a closet pervert, Naruto chose to tease him. When he said, how does he know of my codename while I was in Anbu? Kakashi's visible eye widened, and he narrowed it, and why did he call me a closet pervert? The other two genin didn't understand. He continued to lie to himself, saying, if it's because he knows I read Icha, then it's good literature nothing else. He pointed to Naruto and said, since you are so eager, why don't you go first blonde? Okay. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like a lot of things and dislike just as much. I like to go places and do stuff. As for my dream, get to know me better and you might find out, Naruto says, clearing his throat. He ends with a smile. Okay. White Eye, you're up, he says, gesturing to Hinata, while the others were stunned. That little basted being cooler than me. I'm so humiliating him during the bell test tomorrow, he says. Following the example, Anyo, my name is Hinata Namikaze. My likes, Anyo. She looks at Naruto, believing that this is what her sensei meant. My dislikes, Anyo. My dream, Anyo. She looks at Naruto, who is getting a little nosebleed from the filthy thoughts running through her mind. Duck butt, it's all you, Kakashi said, gritting his teeth, his lone eyebrow twitching slightly as he looks at Sasuke, nearly losing his composure. Angry at the moniker, Sasuke simply disregards caution, saying, you know what? Fuck this, my name is Sasuke Uchiha and that's all you're getting, you scarecrow. Finally, Kakashi decided to end it quickly so he could spend more time with his beloved Icha. Third training ground, 8 o'clock, survival test, be there. Survival T-test was the question that everyone wanted to ask, and Hinata was the one who asked it. Oh, and don't eat breakfast or you'll throw up, Yane, Kakashi said, holding up his hand to stop her from asking further. No, if you're not going to tell me anything about yourselves other than your names then I'll not tell you about the survival test, he said, saluting and speaking in a calm, cheerful voice. After placing Zangetsu on his back and saying, if you want to pass, eat a hearty breakfast, show up at 10 o'clock, and we'll give him hell. Naruto got up and began to leave, Sasuke going the other way and Hinata following. Oh, Kakashi will regret what he did. He has no idea what he got himself into. Sasuke and Hinata have just arrived at training ground 3 at 10 o'clock. Hey Hinata, he says, looking around for their third member. Where's the Dobi, isn't he living with you? He asks, raising an eyebrow. Though blushing at the remark, Hinata responds, He wasn't in the room when I woke up, but he left a note to not wait up for him and that he'll meet us here. As if on cue, Naruto leaps from a tree and scares his teammates by saying, Yo Teme, Morningheim. What's the big idea? Are you trying to give us a heart attack? Said Hinata as he let out a eep, and Sasuke struck him in the head. Ouch, morning to you too, sunshine, Naruto said, massaging the lump on his shot back. Anyway, I got here a little early to observe the terrain of the field as I don't use any training field that often, he said, explaining to them where everything is in the training ground and going over how to handle any test Kakashi may devise. Yo, I'm sorry I'm late, but I fell down a well and had to climb all the way up, then I had to go the long way to get here, he says joyously after 10 minutes had passed and the sensei had finally arrived. And why did you take the long way here, sensei? Naruto asked, while Sasuke and Hinata perspired at their sensei's absurd excuse for his tardiness. In a nutshell, Kakashi said, Guy. Everyone in the room stared at Naruto as if he were crazy, but he nodded in understanding and said, fair enough. What? I sometimes spar with his students Lee in Taijutsu and Tenten in Zanjutsu, and if you ever do meet Guy and his mini-me Lee, shield your eyes whenever they chant each other's names passionately. Sasuke, the cynical one, asked why shuddering. Naruto says, you don't want to know. When Kakashi eventually gets to work, he pulls out an alarm clock, places it atop the central stump, and sets it to go off at noon. The object is to do anything it takes to get these bells from me before noon. A ninja must look underneath, and to get one you will have to come at me with the intent to kill whoever gets a bell passes, he says, turning to face his students as he removes 2 bells that are hanging from a string. When Hinata says, but sensei, there are only 2 bells. Yes, there are only 2 bells, which means one of you will fail and be sent back to the academy, says Kakashi, grinning beneath his mask. When Sasuke is about to yell, Naruto stops him with a hand gesture, saying, Sensei, can we have a minute to discuss this privately? the green genin save Naruto was stunned. Sure, but this will take away from your time, Kakashi says with a smile. After saying, I know, but we won't be long, Naruto escorts his two teammates out of their sensei's line of sight. He said, okay, well, still work together to get the bells, but I won't get a bell letting you two pass, after they had moved far enough away. But isn't your dream to be Hokage? And if you can't be a ninja, you can't achieve your dream, Hinata said, expressing her concerns, as this startled his fellows. With a nod of comprehension, Sasuke responds, nah, that's just a way to further achieve my dream. Besides, we'll all pass, trust me, while Hinata nods reluctantly, anxious about her boyfriend's future. Okay, break, they say as they return to their sensei. Sasuke and Hinata vanish into the trees as Naruto remains in the clearing, and he begins the test after noticing that they are prepared. You know, Naruto, it may have been better to have concealed yourself instead of being in the open, he says. Kakashi pulls out a tanto he saved from his Anbu days, and Naruto says, I know, but what fun would that be? While removing Zangetsu and lifting it up on his shoulder. What, no Icha Icha? Naruto raises an eyebrow. The only thing Kakashi could say was, Hokage-sama warned me to not take you lightly. Naruto remarked, smart man for listening, just prior to their blades colliding. The key word here is barely, but Kakashi is keeping up with Naruto and his monstrous blade despite his lack of Kenjutsu experience. In the training ground, Naruto persisted in pushing him in the direction of the lake. When Kakashi saw what he was doing, he jabbed a log at him, cutting it in half. Never let an opponent get behind you, he said, putting his hands in the tiger seal. Senengarashi. Then stuck his pointer fingers up Naruto's ass, but before he could do so, he vanished. Is that Shunshin? He asked, amazed that a genin could perform the Shunshin no jutsu without being smoke. No, it's called Shunpo, way more advanced than Shunshin. And what was that about not letting an opponent get behind you? He heard a voice behind him. He turned his head, only to be struck in the face by a fist, which knocked him closer to the body of water. He straightened himself to land on his feet on the water, but that's where he wants him. Sasuke, Hinata now. Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu, and Sweden. Mazarapa, are cried out to Kakashi. A massive fireball is approaching from the left, and a high-pressure water spray is approaching from the right. The only thing he could do was to jump out of the way of the two attacks, but his vision was hampered by the hot steam that was released when they collided. The next thing he knows, he's on the ground and unable to feel his limbs. Congratulations, but who's going back to the academy? Was said as the alarm clock sounded, signaling the end of the test. When the steam subsided, Kakashi was hog-tied in ninja wire by Sasuke and Hinata at Naruto's side. Breathing heavily, the latter was holding the two bells in front of Kakashi's face as if taunting him. He threw the bells to his two teammates and said, none of us are, because the exercise's main goal is teamwork. So you were ready to sacrifice your chances for your teammates? Kakashi inquires. When he pulled out a familiar orange book, Kakashi's lone eye widened in horror. No, as if you don't pass all three of us, then, Naruto responded, shocking him. I'll just have to destroy this. No, my baby, Kakashi cried as he struggled for 2 minutes to get out of his bindings. Okay, you all pass. Just don't hurt my baby, Naruto said, putting the book back in the right pouch of his flak jacket and having Sasuke untie their sensei. Congratulations. Meet me here tomorrow at 7 o'clock to start training and missions, the sensei says to his team after he stands up. With a bored tone, Naruto inquired, you mean 9 o'clock, right? With a sigh, Kakashi said, no Naruto, 7 o'clock. Good, because if you're late, I have the right to find you and drag your ass over here myself, and if you think I won't find you, you're in for a rude awakening, Naruto said in a cheerful voice. Kakashi didn't care and shunshined to the Hokage to give him his report on his team's effectiveness. After a month, the month didn't go as planned. Kakashi was standing by a bookshop when Naruto followed through on his promise during their first team meeting. The Jonin was kicking and screaming as they approached, but he was silenced by a little flare-up of his Ryatsu. Every morning after Naruto pulled Kakashi over, the latter would warm up with 201 armed push-ups, squats, sit-ups, and 20 laps around the training area while wearing weights weighing 120 pounds. Since Naruto is the only one Kakashi can keep up with, they spar, but Kakashi only opposes him. Or is it the other way around? Subsequently, they perform 2D rank missions, or what Naruto likes to refer to as chores that civilians are too lazy to do. The only one that is remotely thrilling is the capture of Madame Shijimi's cat and Tora, the fire daimyo wife. At least they emerge from that mission wounded. After that, They are free to do anything they want for the remainder of the day. Usually, this means training at home. But twice a week, Naruto and Hinata go on a date usually. This is a picnic in the forest or a visit to Ichiraku's, which isn't typically the best place for a date, but Hinata doesn't mind at all. Naruto told Sasuke the lengthy tale of the Hyuga sisters living with him, without omitting any details. A few days after the bell test, Sasuke was stunned to learn that the Yondaime was his father and that his friend possessed the strongest Biju in the world. He accepted Naruto as he is after he had calmed down from his shock, and he is even invited to his clan estate whenever he wants to hang out or spar, though the former is more common. One day, Kakashi came to Naruto and told him that he was suspicious of his ancestry. When he was informed of his team members, the Sandaime verified it for him. Kakashi then approached Team 7 and Hanabi to share stories about Naruto's parents and their adventures. The most memorable moment for Naruto and Hinata was when Kushina was captured by Kumo. Minato followed the strands of her red hair she had pulled to create a trail, and when they were close to the border, he incapacitated her captors and gave her compliments on her hair, which changed her opinion of it. Hinata was then motivated to grow out her hair to match Kushina's because Naruto found it attractive. At other times, Naruto would assist Kakashi with his kenjutsu, which was one of his weak points along with his endurance. Naruto also had his sensei participate in their warm-ups using additional weights. Kakashi initially objected to this but ultimately agreed to it. However, either that or Naruto made him join Guy as he warmed up with his apprentice since they were already familiar with the tree climbing and water walking exercises. Kakashi taught his students how to manipulate nature at a young age to begin. They had to channel their chakra into a chakra paper to determine their nature type. Sasuke was expecting it to burn because he is a member of the Uchiha clan, who are naturals at Kaiden jutsus, but to his surprise, it wrinkled, indicating that he is a lightning type. Hinata's wetness indicates that she is a water type. The biggest surprise was Naruto, who was split in half, making him a wind type, a very uncommon type in the land of fire. But it didn't end there. The paper then wrinkled on both sides before burning in a dark, nearly black energy. Kakashi concluded that Naruto had a lightning chakra that was just as powerful as the wind chakra, but he was unable to make heads or tails out of the crimson energy despite being aware that it was his Ryotsu responding to the paper. Naruto said nothing. As of right now, Hinata is improving her water manipulation skills and has even integrated them into her Juken, utilizing her inherent flexibility, while Naruto has completed mastering wind manipulation with the help of his Kage Bushin and is working on lightning with Sasuke. The only drawback is that she must practice it in private since she must take off all of her clothes. However, it is worthwhile because she uses her new taijutsu to defend herself from her attack, forcing Kakashi to put up his erotic novel. She also attempted to take it, not to destroy it, but to read it herself because she is attracted to Icha. In order to catch up, Kakashi then gave Hinata old volumes of the series. Initially, she would read it alone, but as her confidence grew, thanks to her boyfriend, she went to confront him about her new interest. She was initially afraid that he would abandon her because she was a pervert, but he claims that he still loves her regardless of whether she is a pervert or not. Then, using his new version of the Senin Garashi, he nearly killed an Ero sensei by stabbing Zangetsu in the ass hard and using a little Ryotsu to send him flying across the village and landing him in the female side of the Shinobi hot spring, where he was beaten to death for corrupting his sweet, innocent hime. She now reads it whenever she can in public, just like Kakashi, occasionally blushing and laughing in a perverse way. Naruto would perfect his ho-ho whenever everyone else was doing something else, making sure no one was looking. He would use Shunpo to run around the village 20 times while applying a precise amount of Riryoku to the soles of his feet to create a platform that would allow him to walk in midair. He should explain as little as possible. Team 7 is now making their way back from their mission to capture Tora once more. Every male member of the team, including their sensei, has scratches all over their faces, but Hinata is unaffected and holding the cat, who is having a great time. Kakashi stands attentively in front of the village chief as they enter the Hokage's office, saying, "Mission. Capturing Tora, complete. My baby, don't worry, mommy's here." "Yes she is. Yes she is." The boys watched with a sick sense of satisfaction as a large, cheerful woman wearing jewelry and makeup burst through the door after he finished saying that she cries and gives Tora a bone-crushing hug. Much to the cat's chagrin, Hinata couldn't help but feel sorry for the cat with a struggling Tora in her arms. The woman took an envelope from her pocket, handed it to the Hokage, and walked away. "Okay, what will it be today?" "We have cleaning the Inuzuka's kennel, weeding the Yamanaka gardens, cleaning the Akamichi toilets," the Sandaime said, glancing over the mission scrolls after she left the room. He was interrupted by Naruto, who pointed to his special blade on his back and said, "No more chores, old man. We are more than ready for a C-rank mission. I mean, for fuck's sakes, I can beat Kakashi in a spar without Zangetsu." As much as I hate to say it, My student is right. Besides, we completed more of our required amount of D ranks to earn a C rank, and judging by the looks of his fellow teammates, they agree, the Hokage says, giving Kakashi a questioning look before responding to the Sandame's unasked question. Sasuke smirks and gives a HN, while Hinata makes a hi. Pulling a scroll from his desk, the Hokage laughed and said, "Okay, if you think you're ready, I have just the mission for you." He turned to the door and said, "Okay, send him in." He explained that he would be escorting a bridge builder from the land of waves and keeping him safe from bandits and the like until he finished the bridge that connects the island nation to the mainland. A man with dark eyes and a thick beard emerged through the open door. He was dressed in sandals, a pointed hat on his head, a pair of pants, a towel on the back of his neck, and a sleeveless versus neck shirt with an obi. "This is my protection. An emo that cuts his wrists at night, a girl that will shatter to the touch, a cyclops that looks like he might want nothing more than to take a nap," Naruto said, appearing intoxicated and holding a bottle of sake. "And a wannabe samurai that's so poor that he has to make do with a makeshift weapon. That blade looks like it can't even cut butter for my toast." Naruto chuckled at the jabs Sasuke and Kakashi were receiving. The drunk's breathing became labored as he felt an unseen burden suddenly. "Care to repeat that?" Naruto asked in a somber tone as he glanced at the blonde and couldn't help but see a picture of a mask that looked like it wanted to devour his soul. If there is one thing Naruto finds intolerable, it is when someone disparages any of his valued individuals, particularly Zangetsu. "And no thing. Nothing at all. My name is Tazuna, the Supermaster Bridge Builder, and I will trust you with my life," the elderly man responds. Trembling in terror of the blonde, he strikes a ridiculous pose that makes the Sandame think of his own student's introduction, while the others just perspire at the old man's antics. As he recovers first, Kakashi commands his students, "Go home and pack enough for 2 weeks and meet me at the village gate in an hour." After receiving a hi from Hinata, Sasuke's well-known acknowledgement grunt, and a yay, whatever, from Naruto, the three departed to obtain their necessities. When the three genin arrived at the gate an hour later, they were shocked to see Kakashi there with the client. "Who are you and what have you done to Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto said, accusingly pointing a finger at his sensei. As Naruto mumbles something like, "Punctual my ass," the man blinked and said, "What do you mean, Naruto? I'm not always late. In fact, when we have out-of-village missions or if it's serious, I tend to be quite punctual," finishing in a matter-of-fact tone. She nods, pulls out the orange book, and begins reading while concealing the fact that her Byakugan is activated. "Anyway, well, surround the client in a diamond formation, Hinata. You take the front. That way if you see anything wrong with your Byakugan you can signal the rest of us so we can prepare," she says. "Sasuke, you will take the left flank while Naruto takes the right flank so you guys can aid either Hinata if they attack the front or where I will be stationed in the rear for a sneak attack." "Understood," the crowd chanted. "Hi sensei," as they began their journey. Hinata alerted Naruto to impending danger after 3 hours of walking, saying, "Danger 2 meters ahead. 2 chakra signatures, both Chunin level, hidden in low-level genjutsu on right flank." Naruto nodded subtly, promising to take care of the situation. The 4 ninjas started to perspire when they were 2 meters ahead. Team 7's collective thoughts were, a puddle of water in the middle of summer when it hasn't rained in 2 weeks. They must be joking. 2 figures emerged from the water as they passed the puddle. One had dark eyes and wild, shoulder-length dark brown hair. He is dressed in a ragged black cape, a Kirigakure forehead protector with a signal horn on it, a camouflage suit with bandages around his waist, dark-colored, knee-length sandals, a rebreathe that covers the lower half of his face, and a large, clawed gauntlet on his right arm. The other is identical to the first, except that he wears a gauntlet on his left arm that is chained to the other's gauntlet, has multiple pouches around his waist in place of a cape, and has 2 horns on his forehead protector rather than 1. They were about to shackle Kakashi when they felt the air grow heavy and collapse like a bag of potatoes. One of them exclaimed, "What the hell is this?" The other one finished before they passed out in order to prevent them from escaping. Sasuke took out his ninja wire, tied the 2 to a tree, and seized their equipment when he finished. Kakashi gestured for his students to leave him with the prisoners so they could ask why they were singled out, and they did as he asked. "Oi, old man, why do you look so nervous?" asks Naruto to Tazuna as he notices their client perspiring nervously while Kakashi was questioning the ninja. "I'm not that old," is written on the bridge builder's head. With a bored tone, Naruto inquires, "Do you have grandchildren?" Responding with pride, Tazuna says, "Yes, I have a grandson that will turn 9 at the end of December." "Then you're old," Naruto replied icily. Sasuke grinned, Hinata giggled, and Tazuna felt depressed about his advanced age as a result. The bridge builder said, "Those ninja are Gozu and Maizu, otherwise known as the Demon Brothers. They are classified as Chunin level missing nin formerly from Mist. And they were after you. Care to explain?" As Kakashi returned from the interrogation, he didn't appear happy. "Tazuna, we need to talk." Tazuna finally gave in to the pressure and caved. "Okay. I lied about ninja being after me, but I have a good reason. Wave used to be a happy, healthy country, but that changed a year ago when Gato moved in. To the public he owns a shipping company, but it's just a front for his illegal activities, drugs, extortion, human trafficking, you name it. He now owns all the shipping ports and is bleeding the country dry, taking it all while barely leaving us the scraps. We barely had enough for a C rank, so I had to lie for the sake of the people under Gato's thumb. The only hope is the bridge I'm building. I'm the only hope for our poor country. If I die, the country dies." He kneels down. "I beg of you, don't leave me, because if you do, Gato will surely kill me, leaving my widow of a daughter and my grieving grandson alone." The boy already lost his father to Gato. He can't afford to lose anyone else at this point. Kakashi turns to his pupils. "Well, I would say we go back on account. This mission would be too much for a normal Genin team to take, but seeing the progress you guys have made and add to the fact you're not your average Genin squad, I'll ask all of you if you think you're ready to continue this mission. But keep in mind that this mission just went up from a C to a B, possibly a rank. I say we continue. If there is something I can't stand, is tyrants who think of themselves higher than everyone else and hurt anyone just for profit." Naruto responded without missing a beat. He was thinking of Sosuke Aizen and how he turned the Seirei upside down in order to fulfill his self-centered goals by framing Kazuki and turning Shinji and his allies into vizards while sacrificing hundreds of fellow Shinigami. Despite her dislike of hearing people suffer, Hinata had to concur, saying, "We have to help them. No one has to suffer like that." Smiles Sasuke. "Naruto's right also. It's a good chance to test ourselves against enemy shinobi. Besides, we have an ex-Anbu captain to bail us out if we bite off more than we can chew." "Okay. We'll continue the mission, but you will pay us for the right rank of the mission, but I'll tell the Hokage of your situation, and knowing him will set you up with a payment plan with little interest," Kakashi said, sighing at the eagerness of his 3 students before turning to face the imploring old man. "Thank you all so much. You have no idea how much this means for Wave," said Tazuna, who was now crying with joy. He then got up and wiped away the extra tears, and the group of 5 continued their journey without realizing the risks they would encounter. 2 hours have passed since Team 7 defeated the Demon Brothers, and they are currently traveling to the tiny island nation of Wave in a small boat. They couldn't help but stare at the unfinished bridge as they silently crossed the watery border between Fire and Wave country. Hinata exclaimed, "Wow, is that the bridge you're building, Tazuna-san?" Sasuke appeared mildly impressed, based on the fact that his gaze never left the bridge. On the other hand, considering the limited technology available this time, Naruto was a little impressed. Tazuna smiled proudly and concluded with a pose that caused the ninja team to start perspiring. "Yep, she's the hopes and dreams of our country, my super bridge," he said. "We must be silent or Gato will undoubtedly catch us," the man in charge of the boat said quietly. Silence is used for the remainder of the journey. Tazuna thanked the man who had assisted them in crossing, and they disembarked. When they arrived at land on their way to Tazuna's house, Hinata spots something with her Byakugan and surprises everyone by throwing a kunai at a bush. Looking into the bush, they discover that a scared Snow White hare was just missed by the kunai. In an instant after realizing what she has done, she is holding the bunny and expressing regret for nearly killing it. Kakashi is examining the animal while Hinata checks the hare, saying, "It's strange that its fur is white even though it's the middle of summer, meaning it's raised indoors, which only means one thing." He then heard a whistling sound approaching them, which Naruto also noticed. Kawarimi. Then it clicked as they both exclaim, "Get down, now!" Naruto grabs Hinata and the bunny while Kakashi tackles Tazuna and Sasuke. A moment later, a gigantic blade became lodged in the tree behind them, low enough that they would lose their heads if they didn't fall. Then a tall, distinctly muscular man appeared, with brown eyes, short, spiky black hair, pale skin, and small eyebrows, covering the lower part of his face with bandages like a mask. He had jagged teeth and a rather narrow jawline under his mask. Wearing his forehead protector sideways on his head, he is shirtless, has a belt covering his chest that might hold the giant sword he landed on, and is dressed in baggy pants with the typical Kirigakure striped pattern, mimetic wrist warmers that reach his elbows, and matching leg warmers. Upon closer inspection, the blade's 2 cutouts, a circle near the top and a semicircular one closer to the handle, fit the sword's decapitation function perfectly. Its incredibly long handle further identifies it as Kabikirabocho, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist's weapons. Well, if it isn't Zabuza Momochi, otherwise known as Demon of the Hidden Mist. What's a missing nin like you doing in a place like this? Kakashi asked, as if discussing the weather, as the group of 4 or more clients rose from the ground and he recognized the man. If it isn't copy ninja Kakashi, the one who copied over 1,000 jutsus, I could ask you the same thing, Zabuza said, still on Kabikirabocho's handle. Then he noticed the blade on Naruto's back, and his eyes widened a little. Could it be? No, it must be an imitation, he says, narrowing his eyes. That old legend cannot possibly be true. The response that Kakashi gives, just escorting this bridge builder for the monthly rent, nothing more, interrupts Zabuza's concentration. 2 of the genin are frightened when Zabuza laughs and smirks darkly beneath his bandages. The other genin couldn't help but say, kind of reminds me of Kenpachi a little. Funny you should say that, Zabuza responds in a somber tone. I was hired to slay said bridge builder, and seeing as you're in my way, well, he says, leaping off with his blade in hand and landing in front of the group. I'll have to kill you too, he says, creating a strange hand seal that covers the field in a thick mist. Guys, go protect the client. This is Zabuza we're dealing with, an A-rank missing nin formerly from Mist and master of the silent killing technique. You won't know you're dead till it's too late, Kakashi says, alerting his team as he lifts his forehead protector up from his left eye to reveal a Sharingan eye with a scar running vertically through it. The 3 genin encircle the bridge builder as Hinata uses her Byakugan to see through the dense mist. To everyone's astonishment, however, Naruto in particular experiences fear and an unseen burden. How? Naruto asks, observing the dark purple aura emanating from the swordsman in the form of a terrifying demon. While the others believe it to be murderous intent, I believe that when chakra was established, the use of Riryoku was no longer relevant. Then he hears Zangetsu shouting, Naruto, to get his attention, give up your fear, anticipate, keep going, and never give up. Pulling back will cause you to age. If you hesitate, you will perish. Or did you overlook it? In response to Zabuza soothing his teammates, Naruto loosens up a bit and lets go of some of his Ryotsu. Thanks, old man, I needed to hear that, he says, pulling out the blade in a ready stance. The swordsman's icy voice heightened Naruto's murderous intent even after he stopped Zabuza's Ryotsu's effect. There are 8 vital points on the body: liver, lungs, spine, clavicle and jugular vein, brain, kidneys, and heart. So many areas I could strike. I just feel like a kid in a candy store, he concludes with a spooky laugh. Because it brought back memories of that night 5 years ago. Sasuke is on the verge of ending his life to get away from the sensation, while Hinata is trembling more than a leaf. Sasuke. Don't worry, I'll protect you guys even if it kills me. Their sensei yells at him as he is ready to plunge his kunai into his heart. He then turns to face his students and smiles famously, saying, I don't let my comrades die. The 2 no longer felt the need to kill, and they were relieved that their sensei was taking care of it. Unfortunately, that's all Zabuza needs. We'll see about that, he says, and the swordsman enters between the genin and their client. He swung to eliminate Team 7 and the client. Clang. He then used Zangetsu to channel wind chakra so that it could cut vertically through the body and sword, but Naruto stopped him to the surprise of all. However, it turned to water. Not bad, kid. Not only did you cut through my Mizu Bunshin, but you also blocked my silent strikes twice. Too bad that won't be enough, he says as he moves behind Naruto to strike vertically, but the blonde blocks horizontally. You forget, Zabuza, I'm still here, Naruto said, cutting through the one he was blocking, which also turned into water. A third one approached Naruto but was stabbed by Kakashi. Another then materialized behind Kakashi, saying, oh, I didn't forget, before slicing through Kabikirabocho with a horizontal swipe before turning into water himself. He copied my Mizu Bunshin, but how? He asked, very cleverly distracting me with a clone while the real you copied it in the mist, he recalled, recalling the speech he had given to one of his frightened students to get his attention. It's over, he tells Zabuza after spotting Kakashi behind him, poised to kill him with his kunai over his jugular. As the one in front turns back to water, Kakashi hears him say, you think you got me? But I'm not that easy, he says, swinging his blade horizontally, but Kakashi ducks beneath it. However, Zabuza takes advantage of the momentum by putting Kabikirabocho in the ground, which causes the Jonin to be kicked hard by a mule and fly into the water. Now submerged in the water, Kakashi tries to rise but discovers something strange about it. What? This water weighs a lot. Before he can finish, Zabuza approaches and says, hey fool, Suiro no Jutsu. While holding out his hands palms out, he then traps Kakashi in a water dome. He uses his left hand in a one-handed tiger seal, says, Kakashi, we can finish things later, first I'll take care of them, Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu, and makes a single clone. You may have been trying to escape to the water, but that was a big mistake, he. I now have you in my inescapable special prison. It makes things tougher if you can move, you know? Now, he says, keeping his right hand on the dome of water in which he has imprisoned Kai. Damn, he's stronger than I expected. Kakashi is now frantic, believing that they should have returned because this is simply too much for them. Hee, wearing forehead protectors and acting like real ninjas, the water clone says to the three genin. But you know what? A real ninja is someone who survived numerous brushes with death. Basically, once you're good enough to be listed in my handbook, then you can start calling yourself a ninja, you guys. The clone split in two and fell to the ground in a puddle of innocuous water before Naruto could finish. Yo, no brows. I thought that ninjas are supposed to shut up and get the job done, not monologue like a cliché villain from a Saturday morning cartoon all day, Naruto said behind the clone. Now, Zabuza is sulking. Not because he killed one of his clones so easily or in such a short amount of time, however. No one makes fun of his eyebrows and gets away with it, despite the fact that this genin called him out on them after saying, "I'll kill you, brat." He summoned 10 Mizu Bunshins to instantly attack the blonde. He turns to his left and gives the second one a low sweep kick, then spins to catch the third one on his right. As they closed in, Naruto stabbed Zangetsu into the ground and punched the one in front, shattering its Kabikirabocho and nailing him in the face. He elbows the eighth one on the right in the gut, uses the momentum from the elbow strike to deliver a bone-shattering punch to the ninth on the opposite side, and uppercuts the fourth one in front. He also kicks the fifth one on his left, causing him to crash into the sixth one directly behind him while the 9 clones are in the air. Naruto picks up Zangetsu and, with his blade resting on his shoulders, slices the final one diagonally from his right hip to his left shoulder, turning it to water. The other clones soon follow. Come on, no brows. We both know that the only way to at least scratch me is if you fight me for real, otherwise this will be too easy, he says to the swordsman. You want to fight, brat, he said, as he released the Suiro no Jutsu he was using on Kakashi and picked up Kabikirabocho. You got it, he charged in again. Kakashi attempted to stop Zabuza as he caught his breath, but Naruto gave him a look that said, "This is my fight, don't interfere," and he retreated, pulling his Sharingan back. When Zabuza got close to Naruto, he swiped high to chop off his head, but Naruto blocked it and retaliated, blocking the blow. Naruto maintains his composure while Zabuza charges like a raging bull, taking advantage of many gaps in his opponent's crazed blows and getting severely cut. However, that didn't mean he got away unscathed because he is obviously stronger than him and can occasionally overwhelm him. They parted ways to catch their breath after 10 minutes or so, and to Zabuza's surprise, Naruto's wounds were healing almost immediately. The people watching were astounded by Naruto's skill with a blade as large as the Kabikirabocho. His team is equally as shocked as Tazuna, who is amazed that a child almost 5 years older than his grandson is keeping up with someone twice his age. He has demonstrated potential in Kenjutsu, to be sure, but it is absurd that he could defeat one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist. Kakashi is now curious about the identity of Team 7's instructor and pupils. Naruto asks, "Ready for round 2?" after glancing at his opponent. Zabuza smiles as he discovers he doesn't know the child's name, but he still finds him fascinating every minute he's known him. "Kid, what's you and your blade's name? You've earned enough of my respect to have me remember your name so I can carve it on your tombstone." The child also gained enough respect to ask for the victim's name. The name is Naruto Uzumaki, and this is Zangetsu, Naruto says, pointing to the black and silver blade he is holding. The swordsman's eyes noticeably enlarge when he hears the name of Naruto's weapon. It's unbelievable. The legends are real. Well then, Naruto, let's finish this, he said after he had recovered from his shock, and they resumed their death dances. Kakashi asked, "Is Naruto actually enjoying this?" as he finally noticed the smiles on both swordsmen's faces. Sasuke is making an effort to stay ahead of the two. The battle gradually slows down, but at first he was unable to keep up with the speed because they were only visible as blurs on the water's surface. Even though they still move quickly, he can now at least follow their movements. He then observes that everyone has an invisible energy surrounding them. Hinata's is lavender and extends about half a foot from her, Kakashi's is white and extends up to 2 feet, and Tazuna's is a very faint gray that hardly covers his body. However, it is both Zabuza's and Naruto's that frighten him 5 feet away. Zabuza's is a demonic dark purple that weighs heavily on the eye at first glance. Naruto's is a very light blue that easily covers 10 feet, but if you look inside the enormous dome, you'll notice a tiny, dark crimson, nearly black area in the middle that feels even darker than Zabuza's. Hinata gasped as she turned to face Sasuke, drawing his focus away from the battle and toward her. Sasuke-san, your eyes. He approached the lake and couldn't help but smile as he looked at his reflection. He has red eyes with black pupils in place of his onyx orbs. And there are 2 black totems in the iris of his right eye and 1 on his left. I will have to thank Zabuza later because I finally got my Sharingan just by watching him fight the Dobi. You're pretty good kid, being able to clash blades with me. I'm now curious, who taught you how to handle that blade? Zabuza asked in astonishment as Naruto and Zabuza resumed their sword fight. In an attempt to outshine Zabuza, Naruto clenched his teeth and said, "To be honest, nobody didn't want to teach me anything, so I taught myself." This surprised the swordsman, who said, "Damn, that's impressive. If you weren't about to die by my blade, I'd beg for you to be my apprentice." The child is doing very well against him, and he taught himself when no one else would ever teach him. Without a trace of irony, Naruto stated, "I'm flattered and would accept the offer, but you're not only a danger to the client, you're a danger to my team, who are also my friends." Well, as much fun as this is, I'm ending it now, Zabuza says, using all of his strength to push Naruto back to gain some space. He then uses 44's lightning fast hand seals to create a bird seal, Suiryuden no Jutsu, and a giant water-based dragon emerges from the lake and slams into Naruto. Although Hinata is now concerned about her beloved, she is certain that he and the others avoided the risky tactic. Naruto was nowhere to be seen once the water subsided. Now that he believes he has him, Zabuza is smiling, but that smile is erased when he hears someone shouting, "Getsuga Tensho." From behind him he turns to see a blue, vertical, crescent-shaped attack coming his way. His eyes briefly enlarge before he escapes the slashing assault. The attack left a gash in the ground and sliced through a narrow strip of the lake's surrounding forest. Tazuna is wondering if he had too much to drink, and Zabuza can only say, "Damn." Kakashi and the others look in the direction of the attack's origin and discover Naruto standing in midair with his blade down as he slashed vertically. Hinata is shocked to see that attack again, and even after the Hokage told him about it, he still couldn't believe it. Tazuna did indeed drink too much. They were now questioning whether this was a dream. How many people do you know who have the ability to walk in midair? Exactly. No issue going up vertical surfaces on water, difficult but manageable. I'm fucking possible in midair. Nevertheless, Naruto has once again done the I am fucking possible. Is he going to make pigs fly next? Hold on, don't respond to that or Taunton will be unhappy. When Naruto yelled, "Oi no brows, what do you say we finish this with our strongest technique?" Zabuza was startled out of his incredulity. "Well, let's do this," Zabuza said with a beaming smile. He performed a series of hand seals as Naruto held Zangetsu high above his head, pointing to the sky, channeling all of his Riryoku into his blade, causing his Ryotsu to not only flare violently but also take the shape of a sinister mask that resembles a skull. It's time to strike once Zabuza has completed the bird seal. Sweden. Daibakufu no Jutsu, Getsuga Tensho. While a massive wave of blue Riryoku in the shape of a crescent moon is traveling to Zabuza's location, a vortex of water shot towards Naruto. The two assaults clashed in a struggle for supremacy. A natural smokescreen was eventually produced when Naruto's attack destroyed Zabuza's water vortex and collided with Zabuza. Following the removal of the offending dirt, Zabuza is seen nearly unconscious from burns all over his body as he leans against a broken tree. "What are you, the Shinigami?" he asked in terror as he got a clear view of Naruto. As he fell back to the ground, he could not help but see a phantom projection of a sickly purple figure wearing a white kimono, with long, spiky white hair, a set of red horns protruding from his hair, and a tanto in his mouth. "Yes, and I'm here for your soul," was Naruto's response. Just as he was about to finish him, 2 senbon needles ended up in Zabuza's bare neck, killing him. A figure emerges from above the trees and lands close to Zabuza's body. He is no more than 15 years old, has long black hair in a bun, and has a body that gives the impression that he is a girl. He is dressed in a split skirt that reaches his knees and a turtleneck sweater with stripes in moss green. He is dressed in a green-blue short kimono with white edges, a green-brown obi around his waist, a white mask with a red wave on the lower half, the Kiri symbol on his forehead, and a sheathed katana strapped to his back that is being heeled by a green strap. The obi is made of the same fabric as his sweater and has a fringed trail. In a high, almost feminine, masculine voice, he then bows to everyone and says, "Thank you very much. I have been searching for the opportunity to kill Zabuza for a long time." The person who killed Zabuza is shown to Kakashi. "That mask, you're a Kiri hunter nin," he says more than he asks. After a brief pause, the hunter nin says, "Impressive, you are correct. Looks like he's dead," Kakashi says after checking Zabuza's pulse and finding none. "Your battle is now over, and now I must dispose of this body since it seems to hold many secrets. Farewell." the hunter nin says as he approaches the body and picks it up before he leaves with the body. "Oi, are we supposed to get this old man to his home or what?" asks Naruto, who has Zangetsu back on his back, breaking the heavy silence. They all thought the same thing as they awoke from their daze and silently made their way to Tazuna's house. How strong is Naruto, Naruto-kun, the dobi, the brat? The hunter nin places Zabuza's body down and draws out his tools in a clearing in the forest. "First I'll cut the mouthcloth, drain some blood and," he says, selecting the one that resembles a pair of scissors. "That's all right, I'll do it myself," Zabuza said, obviously still alive, as his hand shot out to halt the hunter nin's advance before he could get the pair of shears to cut. With a slightly startled expression, the feminine male says, "Oh, you've already come back to life. Damn Haku, you sure are rough," the swordsman who had been brought back to life remarked as he pulled the senbon from his neck. Concerned for his partner, Haku exclaimed, "Oh, you shouldn't be so rough yourself. You'll really die pulling them out like that." Zabuza interrupted as though nothing had happened, asking, "How long are you going to wear that stupid mask?" He removed his mask to reveal a woman's face with brown eyes. "It reminds me of the old days plus, it was useful for this act," he said. "If I hadn't saved you, you definitely would have been killed." Zabuza complained, "You are annoying as always, because a puncture to the neck hurts like hell. If you were going to put me into a momentary death, you didn't have to use my neck, you could have aimed for a safer acupuncture point." Haku says with a slight blush on his face, "I know, I just didn't want to scar your beautiful body. For the ladies of course, and the neck doesn't have much muscle, so it's easier to hit the acupuncture point there. You shouldn't be able to move much for about a week, but knowing you it'll be sooner." Following a few minutes of quiet, Zabuza says, "Haku, that brat is just like you," in a worried tone. "I know, he has the same eyes as me," Haku remarked, lowering his head. "That's not what I mean, Haku," he replies. "Did you notice the blade he uses as well as the techniques he uses?" "You don't mean," Haku exclaims as he recalls the fight Zabuza and Naruto had. "That's right, he's a Shinigami just like you," Zabuza concludes, maintaining eye contact with his protege. "This isn't good. If he gets out then we're all doomed if I don't get stronger." Not wanting to show his team, Naruto threw away the mask and asked his partner, "Old man, do you think I'm ready to relearn Bankai?" The quintet was on their way to Tazuna's house when he crept to the back and went through his kimono. To his horror, he discovered a mask similar to the one that had appeared on his face when he woken, but this one has 3 red horizontal streaks running through the upper right side. "Well, Naruto, the question is, do you think you're ready?" Zangetsu laughs. Zangetsu never responds directly, so Naruto shakes his head and says, "Hey, I do. Just wanted your opinion." After a long period of silence, Zangetsu said, "Did you notice anything about that hunter nin that took Zabuza?" "Yay, now that you mention it," says Naruto, deep in thought. Although his Ryotsu diminished after he killed Zabuza, it did not entirely vanish. After about half an hour, it flares up again. It wasn't at its strongest, but he's still alive. He must be employed by Zabuza because he saved him and hunter nin did not kill him. "That's true," Zangetsu said, hinting at his counterpart, "but what did you notice from the ninja at a close glance?" Reviewing his memories of the hunter nin, Naruto began to recall that he possessed a great deal of Ryotsu. Too much for a human. His eyes widened as he noticed that the sword on his back had a bronze handle wrapped in a light purple leather dyed with a bronze diamond pattern. The guard resembled a bronze 4-pointed star. Shit, he's a Shinigami too, he thought. Furthermore, he is in possession of Tashiro's Hirenmaru. I realize now that I will require Bankai. A worried Hinata interrupted Naruto in the middle of his thought, asking, "Naruto-kun, are you okay?" He ended with a phony smile to allay her fears. "Yay, I'm fine, just thinking is all," he said. Unfortunately, she realized it was phony and said, "No you're not. Now tell me, what's on your mind?" with a little more vigor. "I think the hunter nin saved Zabuza, not kill him," Naruto sighed in exasperation. Hinata was taken aback and exclaimed, "How? I mean, Kakashi checked him himself and stated he was dead." "I know, but when a person dies, their chakra disappears completely. Though minuscule, I sensed Zabuza still had chakra, and as we are on the way to Tazuna's it grew, slowly but steadily. Personally I don't know how he did that, but the fact is that he's still alive with someone helping him, and judging by his chakra is just as strong as or stronger than me." This frightened Hinata. Someone more powerful than Naruto, who killed Mizuki like a fly, defeated the demon brothers simply by glancing at them, and not only faced down but also outlasted one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. It was obvious that he had good reason to be concerned. In order to reassure Naruto, Hinata took hold of his hand and gave it a light squeeze. I'm sure you'll pull through like you always do, she concluded, kissing his cheek. Thanks, Haim. You always know what to say to lift my spirits, Naruto said, grinning at the affection she showed him and giving her a quick kiss on the forehead. They spent the remainder of the walk cuddling. When they arrived at the client's house, they were met by his daughter Tsunami, a rather unremarkable woman with a mature face, black eyes, and long dark blue hair. She was dressed in a blue knee-length skirt and a short-sleeved pink shirt with red sleeves and the neck. After introducing themselves, they made their peace. They later got to know her son, Inari, who has black eyes and short black hair. He sports a white bucket hat with 2 blue horizontal stripes, green overalls, and a cream short-sleeve shirt underneath. He simply said, "They're going to die," and fled to his room. When she introduced him to the team, she went on to describe how he lost his father figure, how Kaizo was killed by Gato for opposing them, and how he has been depressed ever since. Naruto chose to express his worries while the team was chatting about guard shifts in the living room. "Kakashi-sensei, is it possible to put someone in a death-like state?" he asked. "Why do you want to know about that, Naruto?" Kakashi asked, surprised by the seemingly arbitrary question. "Well, when I think back to when that Hunter Nin killed Zabuza and took his core, I have this uneasy feeling that maybe that Hunter Nin didn't kill him but put him in a death-like state to retreat. Add to the fact I felt Zabuza's chakra not disappear. It got weaker, yes, but not disappear like it would a dead man." Kakashi pondered what his pupil had said. "Now that you mention it, a Hunter Nin's job is to hunt down missing Nin and destroying the body on location. First off, the Hunter Nin used Senbons, which, if not aiming for a vital organ, would have a very small chance of killing a target. They're even used by doctors for acupuncture therapy. Though Hunter Nin do have a vast knowledge of the human body, so it's possible for him to put Zabuza in a death-like state. And 2, he didn't destroy the body right away. Instead, he took the body away from any witnesses, meaning Zabuza is most likely alive, and judging by the damage you did, he'll be out for a week. I got to say, I'm surprised on your eye for detail, Naruto. You may not be the sharpest knife in the kitchen drawer, but when it comes to something out of place, you really shine." "I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or an insult," asks Naruto after receiving a tick mark on his forehead. Kakashi simply smiles with his trademark eye and says, "Take it as a compliment." Naruto stated sardonically, "You're an ass, you know that, right?" "I know, it's who I am," Kakashi declared with all of his pride. He continues, "We're also going to need to train if you're going to have a chance against Zabuza and his mystery accomplice. When you're not guarding Tazuna, Hinata will work on the Suiryuden no Jutsu as you finally have enough chakra to use, even if it's enough for 2 to 3 times a day. Sasuke, I'll increase your weights to bring your speed up. Once you reach the speed I want you to be, then I'll teach you my only original jutsu sense. You already have your Sharingan unlocked. Just don't expect to get to the speed I want you to be during this mission." And Naruto, before he could say anything about Naruto's training, he intervened. "Actually, Kakashi-sensei, I'll take the guard shifts for the first 4 days so you can focus on Hinata and Sasuke here, but on the last 3 days I'll disappear to train on my own. I need to do this if I'm going to beat his partner, as I can sense he's just as strong if not stronger than me. Please don't worry, I'll be back in time to face off against Zabuza and the fake Hunter Nin." "Okay, well, it's time to hit the hay. Good night," Kakashi said after defeating one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, and he went to one of the 2 guest rooms, with Naruto and Hinata taking the second one and Sasuke taking the couch. Despite their special bond, Kakashi has complete faith in Naruto and, although he won't admit it, he respects him greatly. The first 2 days went smoothly. Naruto took Tazuna's place as guard and created 2 clones to keep an eye on the house in case Gato decided to target the elderly man's family. In order to multitask, Kakashi used 2 Kage Bunshin to concentrate on his 2 other students. One for Sasuke, one for Hinata, and the original to enjoy his supposedly priceless Icha. Hinata has mastered all of the hand signals thus far, but after firing one, she becomes fatigued. Additionally, Sasuke can move with 300 pounds of weights on him as if he had never worn them before, and he is currently lifting 400 pounds. Hinata and Sasuke began to feel as though they were being watched on the 3rd day, but when they turned around, all they could hear was the jingle of chains, which kind of creeped them out. Naruto denied seeing anything odd or hearing chains jingle when they asked him if he had heard or seen anything. Since they didn't miss him becoming tense at the mention of the chains, they chose to ignore it for the time being. Sasuke began to realize that animals, plants, insects, and pretty much anything else that is alive also have the aura of what he believed to be chakra around them when he practiced activating on the same day that he got his Sharingan. To his astonishment, he pulled it toward his hand to form a bow out of that chakra. As he reached to touch it, he drew it back and fired it after grabbing the area where the bowstring would be, and it turned into an arrow out of the chakra surrounding him. The tree has a scorch mark. As a result, he grinned at the new finding and continued shooting until he became weary of the strain. Why do you try so hard? Gado's just going to hire men that are stronger than you and you will just die, Inari said, describing the peaceful dinner that day as being interrupted by the shinobi's what he called a losing battle. Naruto calmly tried to defuse the situation by saying, "Relax kid, they may be strong, but we're stronger personally. If I die and this country is free, that will be fine for me as I'll die happy." The statement, "You think it's so easy do you? Well you have no idea what it's like to suffer like we have," was regrettably ignored by Inari. The next thing he knows he's held hostage by a power, don't know what it's like to suffer, Well you would be dead wrong. Hinata is hated by her own family save for her Imouto and have been able to escape recently. Sasuke's whole family on the other hand was murdered before his very own eyes by his loving Oni. But I on the other hand had no family from the start and was and still is hated by most of my village. I've been chased, beaten, stabbed, burned. Hell I've been crucified a few times and all that happened before I turned the ripe age of 5 so unless you had it worse than that, don't you dare say you suffered more you little shit. Where are you going? Called Kakashi as Naruto approached the door. Kakashi saw that Naruto's eyes had changed from their typical blue to a sickly yellow as he turned his head and he just said, "Out," opened the door, stepped outside, and slammed it shut so hard that the door frame cracked. "No Hinata, he needs to be alone for a while to cool off," her sensei said as Hinata was ready to get up. She sat back down and listened to Kakashi, but she couldn't help but worry about her beloved. Tazuna has his head down, Tsunami is crying, and Inari is still sitting there, looking scared and sporting a noticeable stain on his crotch. The following morning, we discover Naruto unconscious and Zangetsu in a clearing where what was once a forest has turned into a wasteland of charred trees and spitting dirt. This image shows Haku with his hair down and wearing a low-cut, pink, sleeveless kimono that reaches his ankles and has pale red edges with tiny plum-colored swirls. He wore a dark choker around his neck, light brown sandals with dark straps, and a plain white obi tied in a bow around his waist. When he sees Naruto, he mulls over whether or not to kill him. "Wake up, you'll catch a cold," he said after shaking him awake. "Sorry, just did some training to release some stress. By the way, I'm Naruto," he says, holding out his hand for him to shake, as Naruto awakens to what he believes to be a pretty girl about his age. He returned the greeting, "I'm Haku, it's nice to meet you." After determining that it was just past the break of dawn based on the sun's position, Naruto asked inquisitively, "So, what's a girl like you doing here at this ungodly hour?" Haku responded, "I'm gathering herbs for my ill father," satisfying Naruto's curiosity. "Mind if I help? I've got nothing better to do right now anyway," asked Naruto, who had nothing better to do. Haku agreed, and the two of them searched for herbs, or what was left of them. Haku chose to strike up a conversation while they were gathering herbs by asking, "Are you a shinobi, Naruto-san?" Naruto stated, "Yeah, I am. I'm just on a mission to protect some old fart from bandits and whatnot," sounding indifferent. Considering the damage Naruto had sustained during his training, Haku remarked, "I hate to pry, but why are you training? Judging by the damage you left, you already seem strong to me." Naruto gave it some thought, as if he was considering whether or not to tell this stranger. His final statement was, "Well, I trained to help me achieve my dream." "And what is your dream? Is it to be the leader of your village or to be known throughout the elemental nations?" he inquired. To his surprise, Naruto responds, "No, it's to actually protect everyone dear to me. You see, I'm not the most popular guy in my village, so anyone that would just give me the time of day is considered precious to me, and I believe if you are protecting something or someone worthy to you, you can take on even the strongest of enemies. I'm glad I'm not the only one that believes that, especially someone that shares the same pain as I do," Haku said with a smile, but Naruto didn't ask what he meant by the last part. As he stood up to go, Haku said, "Well, I have to go. It was nice talking to you, and by the way, I'm a boy. Did I just have a conversation with a transvestite, and did I think of him as cute?" he asked Naruto, who was left feeling shocked and appalled. He urgently needed his girlfriend. "Fortunately, Naruto-kun, she said as she emerged into the clearing, looking extremely concerned for him. Naruto kissed her passionately before she could finish. He simply said, "Make out now, ask questions later," after noticing his girlfriend's bewilderment when they parted ways, and they carried on for at least 10 minutes. Their clothes were wrinkled and they had noticeable hikes on their necks and collarbones when they returned to Tazuna's house after their passionate makeout session. "What, can't a guy make out with his girlfriend without question?" Kakashi asked about the hikes, and Sasuke raised an eyebrow. "What, can't a guy make out with his girlfriend without question?" Kakashi then backed off, knowing that a furious Naruto means an injured Kakashi, who is still sore from that Senin Garashi from when he learned that he got Hinata hooked on Icha Icha. The remainder of the day proceeded without incident. At the end of the day, Naruto bid farewell and Shunpo left for training to ensure that no one would notice the spike of Ryotsu. He reached a sizable clearing close to Fire Country's shore. He created a lone cage Bunshin and stabbed Zangetsu in the clone. But it instantly changed into Zangetsu. "Are you prepared for this?" Zangetsu asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," is the only answer Naruto gives. Zangetsu said, "Very well," gesturing with his hands and thousands of blades of various sizes and shapes. The only thing they had in common with him was the color that rained down from the sky. "You remember the conditions, just find the one sword out of the thousands here, as that one is the only one that can cut me," he said, pulling one that resembled Zangetsu's Shikai. "And I'm sure you noticed that you can't remember what your Bankai looks like. I did that to ensure you get stronger without shortcuts," he said. "Like it matters, bring it on, old man," Naruto said as he pulled one of the zigzag-patterned blades. The two swords clashed for 3 days until Naruto discovered the correct blade and finished his training. Knowing that Zabuza was likely to show up, the entire team went to the bridge with Tazuna. On the 7th day, the workers were discovered on the ground, appearing to have been ambushed. When they arrived, Tazuna hurried over to one of the employees and knelt down to ask, "Who did this?" The worker managed to utter only one word before fainting: "Monster." Subsequently, they were enveloped in dense fog, which instructed them to remain vigilant and arrange themselves around their client. "Long time no see, Kakashi. I see you're still with those brats, but where's the blonde one at? He's the one that would be a challenge against my protege." They hear a familiar dark chuckle as the mist clears. They find themselves surrounded by Mizu Bunshins, now wearing a tank top. Zabuza taunts, "He's shaking again, poor kid," as Sasuke begins to tremble. To his astonishment, however, Sasuke smirks and says, "I'm trembling with excitement," before vanishing in a manner akin to Naruto's use of Shunpo and returning to the same location, this time with his Sharingan activated and 2 totems on each eye. The Mizu Bunshin splash back into the water after a brief interval. Zabuza was initially taken aback and then perplexed chose to explain, "After seeing the Dobi use what he calls Shunpo a countless number of times, I tried to copy it, but no matter what I did I couldn't get it down. Then when I activated my Sharingan while observing his fight, I noticed a chakra that wasn't your standard chakra being used by the Dobi, so I tried to manipulate it myself. I discovered that I can make weapons out of this special chakra, but it takes a lot of concentration. In the end I didn't recreate Shunpo, but I made something better by creating a solid platform beneath my feet. I can ride the flow of this chakra, propelling me to speeds as fast, if not faster than Shunpo. I decided to name it Hirenkyaku. Fitting, don't ya think?" With an arrogant voice. "Well, at least we have something to entertain ourselves till the blonde brat gets here then," Zabuza thinks as he begins to laugh, and then he and the hunter Nin who captured him emerge from the fog. "Why don't you take care of him while I get Kakashi?" he asks his partner. His only response was, "Hi, Zabuza-sama," and he vanished, much like Naruto does with Shunpo, striking Sasuke with senbons between his fingers like claws with his own kunai. However, Sasuke was able to successfully defend, saying, "Naruto-san isn't the only one that knows Shunpo." Naruto revealed that it's a Kekkei Genkai technique and that he was the only one who used it, surprising Sasuke. When this was over, "The Dobi has a lot of explaining to do," he said. Haku, seeing his surprise, decided to enlighten him. "Judging by your surprise, he hasn't told you what he is, has he?" His answer is only silence, so he continued, "Naruto-san, as well as myself, are spiritual warriors that could use only Riryoku or the spiritual energy thanks to the lack of a physical body. They thrived before the time of the Rakudo Sannin, when the living realm was at peace. At that time very little humans had the means to defend themselves from us. You happen to be a descendant of one, judging by the ability to manipulate reishi, or spirit particles found all over nature. I heard it's now being referred to as natural chakra now. We had 2 jobs. One is to escort the souls of the dead to the afterlife, and 2 is to slay monsters that were once souls themselves with our swords we call Zanpakutos and purify them so they too can pass on. This is to ensure a balance of souls that stays in the mortal realm and go to the afterlife. Otherwise one of the worlds will seep into the other and will collapse on itself, destroying reality as we see it. It is said that the Rakudo Sannin himself was one too and sealed the realms of the dead from the mortal realm and made it so new souls can pass over without our aid, making us obsolete. But that did more harm than good. The remaining monsters that were left became deprived of their source of nourishment, souls, so they all gathered and started to eat each other. This in turn merged them into one bigger and more terrifyingly strong monster, so strong that the Rakudo Sannin couldn't defeat it himself. So he gave the people some of his Riryoku to mix with their physical energy to make chakra and taught the people to use it to help him defeat the monster that is threatening to destroy all that they cherish. Many lives were lost that day. but they gave the Rakudo-Sanin enough time to seal the beast in himself to bring peace to the world. The monster later became known as the Jubi and the warriors were known as Shinigami. This shocked Sasuke and all that are listening save for Zabuza. TTH the S Shinigami? But I thought there's only one, Kakashi uttered, bewildered and terrified that his pupil might steal his soul at any moment. No, Kakashi, not the one we know and worship. They only escort dead souls to the afterlife. They can't eat souls of the living. That is what those monsters that my tool told us about do, Zabuza said. Laughing at Kakashi's error, Kakashi calmed down a little at this point, but he was still uneasy about what the blonde was. Why did you keep this from me, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, a little offended that even after learning about Kyuubi and that he had told her about his parents, he had not told her everything. Sasuke grunted in response to Haku's statement, I don't want to kill you, but you're stubborn, aren't you? Sasuke had a puzzled expression on his face. I see, he said, but you won't be able to keep up with my speed the next time, plus I have already gained an advantage, he said, finishing with a palm up to face Sasuke, Hado number 31, Shakaho, and a beam of hot red Ryotsu aimed at burning the Uchiha. Though I congratulate you on discovering your abilities in such a short time, but without something to help focus the reishi you gather, your arrows are useless, said Uchiha said, avoiding the red Ryotsu blast by rephasing to Haku's back and firing a single bolt before it was swatted away by Haku's sword. Sensatsu Suisho, he said, stomping on the bridge, and thousands of senbons made of ice appeared where there was all that water left over from Zabuza's Mizu Bunshin surrounding Sasuke, and they all charged at him. Fortunately, he Hirenkiku'd out of sight, striking with a kunai on his back before it was blocked by a senbon. Haku then stepped back slightly to make a few hand signals, Makio Hyosho. Additionally, 21 ice mirrors appeared around the two. It is time I finish this, Haku said, unsheathing her sword, and the sheath vanished, revealing a blade that was a little longer than her own. He then stepped into the mirror and appeared on the other mirrors. Sit upon the frozen heavens, Hirenmaru. A dazzling light ensued, and his sword changed, growing slightly longer and gaining a crescent-shaped blade that was fastened to its hilt by a long metal chain. Sasuke attempted to move, but he froze from the waist down. As soon as he looked down, he exclaimed, "What's this?" with horror. "This is your last chance. Give up now," Haku replied in a monotone, because it's Hirenmaru's most basic but strongest ability, Tenso Jurin. It allows me to control the weather in the immediate vicinity, or more specifically, control the water in the surrounding atmosphere to such a degree that the temperature could drop from 100 degrees all the way to below zero in seconds. Ice forms around the blade that all the Haku reflections possess, or perish. Sasuke remained silent, but his eyes spoke for him. "Don't even think about it, Kakashi. This is their fight, not yours, unless you want me to kill the bridge builder now. Just sit tight and watch. Plus, even if you do help him, he's a goner now that he's trapped in that jutsu," Zabuza says as he blocks Kakashi's attempt to go assist his student from the sidelines. "Is he who I think he is?" Kakashi asked, frozen as he glanced at the jutsu. "Yes, he's the last survivor of the Yuki clan, the one with the Haiden Keke Genkai," Zabuza said with a sly smile. "One of his students is on the verge of passing away, the other is occupied protecting the client, and the final one has not yet returned from his 3-day training trip." Kakashi cursed his luck. He was about to give up as a sensei when he heard the cry, "Getsuga Tensho," and turned to see the ice mirrors burned by a blue crescent blast. A few seconds later, a blue crescent-shaped blast fell on the mirrors, which Haku managed to avoid in time, destroying them and the ice that encased Sasuke's lower half without hurting him. Back in the dome of mirrors, Haku was about to finish off the Uchiha when he heard the cry, "Getsuga Tensho." As Sasuke was falling, he was caught by a slightly bandaged Naruto, who said, "Yo Teme. Sorry I'm late, had to help a mother and her child with a pest problem." He then went to lay Sasuke down and saw the looks he received from Hinata and the bridge builder. "I assume that he told you what I am." They nodded in agreement. "Would you honestly believe you'd be able to handle the new information after learning of what I contain in my lineage?" His two teammates nodded, while Tazuna became perplexed by the blonde's statement. "I'll explain everything when this is all over, okay?" said the blonde, before kissing Hinata on the forehead and saying, "I got to take down a transvestite." He then turns to face a stunned Haku and asks, "How's it going, Haku?" "How did you know?" he asks, still stunned, taking off his mask because he sees no need to hide what has been exposed. "I sensed your Ryotsu when we met in the clearing 4 days ago, and it matched the hunter Nin we encountered a week ago, but I didn't call you on it because you said you were a boy when you left despite me calling you a girl at the start without correcting me. You have any idea what I did to erase that image out of my head?" Naruto clarified but wasn't able to help, which made Hinata blush. Regardless, Haku said, adopting a Zanjutsu stance, you will either stand down or die by my hands for Zabuza-sama's dream. Let's see if you can handle Hiranmaru just as good as Shiro-chan did, said Naruto, grinning as he pulled Zangetsu out in a ready stance. Haku is curious about who this Shiro-chan is, but he ignores it and charges with Hiranmaru. Just as Naruto does with Zangetsu, they clash when they meet in the middle, marking the beginning of the battle that will live on in memory for a very long time. When the two engaged in Zanjutsu combat, they split apart only to have their blades violently collide once more in midair. They appear as blurs of turquoise and black to onlookers. The few that aren't deflected cause the opposing side to get cut or scratched. Almost every strike was countered by one and then countered again by the other. They are fighting for their dreams together, giving it their all. Haku's motivation is Zabuza and his ambition to become Mizukage in order to put an end to the Kekkei Genkai purges for Naruto. It's for his team and the liberation of this island nation that has endured too much suffering at the hands of a despot who is gradually destroying it for financial gain. Even though they are similar dreams, only one will be realized, and the other will remain a dream. After striking each other's blades repeatedly, they split apart, and the sky above Haku grows gloomy as though a fierce snowstorm is about to break out. Then, as he swings his blade vertically, ice forms from the sword from close to the guard to the tip, creating a massive Chinese dragon with glowing yellow eyes that is made completely of ice and rushes in Naruto's direction. When the dragon turns toward his target like a guided missile after Naruto Shunpo has moved out of the way, he uses a Getsuga Tensho to destroy it and protect himself from its icy fury before another ice dragon from the blade could attack. Naruto Shunpo went to Haku's back to fire a Getsuga Tensho. They carried on the tradition of Getsuga Tensho defending the ice dragon and vice versa in an attempt to comprehend his opponent. Naruto said, I don't understand how someone like you can follow someone like Zabuza? After they had been locked blades for 5 minutes. The final line of Haku's poem, because when I had nothing to live for, he gave me a purpose. True, he's far from perfect, but without him I'm nothing, was tinged with rue. So you would deny the freedom of one country for one man's selfish desire? Cried Naruto incredulously as he glanced at the blades and noticed that Hiranmaru was channeling ice to freeze him, breaking the deadlock and preventing him from becoming a living popsicle. Selfish, you say? All Zabuza-sama wants is to be Mizukage to stop the bloodshed caused by the Yondaime's hate of Kekkei Genkai. He yelled out in outrage, causing the other to halt and listen. I was a victim of that too. My mother was a part of the Yuki clan that holds the Hyuden Kekkei Genkai, or the ice release. By having an equal affinity of water and wind, we can combine them like the Shodai Hokage's Mokuton but to make ice. She escaped her clan before it was killed by the Mizukage's forces and met my father, a simple farmer. Eventually they had me. We were so happy together as a family. Then that all changed when I discovered it and showed my mother. She frantically told me to never show it to anyone again. But my father saw it, and later that night he gathered the local villagers and killed my mother. They then tried to kill me, but my true power surfaced and froze everyone in an icy prison, letting me escape. When I woke up the next morning, I found Hiranmaru lying at my side and it started to talk to me. It told me everything. What I am, who he is, how I killed those that would kill me, and the stories of his previous master who he doesn't remember his name. We soon became friends and worked together to grow stronger so that anyone that's close to us doesn't die again. Later we met Zabuza-sama and he took us in and taught me all about the art of a shinobi. He did the best thing anyone could do for me. He gave me a purpose and a home. You see, without one you might as well be dead. If you have nothing to live for, then why should you be alive? When he made me his tool, he saved my life, and the least I can do for him is to be his tool and follow his will. Then he summons another ice dragon to freeze Naruto, only for him to counter with a Getsuga Tensho. You know what, Haku? We're more alike than I thought. We wish to protect those we hold close. For you it's Zabuza. Despite his reputation, from what you told me, just wants to save his village from a tyrant, but unable to do that you need to aid another tyrant. But for me it's for all my teammates and village, but also for the innocent, and I'd put myself on the line dying for them rather than accepting help from the devil. Besides, how do you know if he would double-cross you to avoid paying you in the first place? There was silence until Naruto responded to his own rhetorical query. That's right, you don't. Haku retorted icily to her opponent, if it is Zabuza's will, I will follow to no end no matter the risks. Naruto takes a moment to reflect. Then we're at an impasse here. How about we show our full strength and fight with our all? If I win, I'll spare and help Zabuza with his dream if he still wants it, but if you win, I want you to let my friends be and protect them when Zabuza's either dead or has the Mizukage hat right on top of his head. Everyone, even Zabuza, is shocked by this. Instead of asking, Haku said, only one of us is making it out alive, and Naruto nodded. Then there is little hope for you. He pointed his sword at Naruto and said, Bankai. Which more excited the blonde than scared him. Ice began to form from Hiranmaru to his right arm, forming a dragon's head at his hand and encasing his sword up to the hilt with a star that had changed from 4 to 8 points. With a long tail and 2 huge wings emerging from his back, the ice keeps building up over his shoulders. His hand, which ends in a claw, is encased in ice that has formed down his left arm. The ice covering Haku's feet is comparable to that of his left hand, which ends in claws above him. 3 ice flowers with 4 purple diamond-shaped petals each emerge. Daigor and Hiranmaru. Viewers watch in wonder and some fear as Tazuna, Hinata, a recuperating Sasuke, and Kakashi are blocked by Zabuza. Out of all the years I've trained him, I've never seen him do that. It's a wonder why he follows me, Zabuza said first, and Kakashi could only nod in agreement with his pupil. Hinata said, be careful, Naruto-kun, as she worried about her love and savor. He chuckles, though, to the surprise of everyone, saying, well, at least it won't be as easy as I thought. Haku asks in confusion, what do you mean as easy? He shouted, because, you're not the only one that knows Bankai. Which caused Haku's eyes to enlarge with the cloth that serves as the makeshift sheath encircling his arm as if it were acting on its own initiative. Naruto points Zangetsu straight ahead of him. Bankai is followed by a violent surge of Ryatsu all around him, and then an explosion of Ryatsu blocks out anyone's vision in his direction. When it cleared, Naruto was seen holding a pure black dado, while the guard was fully shaped like a kanji. A chain that hangs at the hilt's butt cap takes the place of the cloth. In addition, he is wearing a long-sleeved, ankle-length black coat with red lining in place of his typical robes. It is closed at the chest and then allowed to flare out into ragged ends. The only items that remain the same are his hakama pants, shoes, and forehead protector. Tensa Zangetsu. Everyone blinked in shock because Haku's was so much more spectacular than Naruto's. When the blonde activated his Bankai, they felt the air around them become heavier, but they dared not criticize it. Except for Haku. That's an odd Bankai. From what Hiranmaru told me, they usually create some massive creature or effect. It's disappointing, to be honest. After finishing, he saw Naruto briefly shimmer before his wings abruptly collapsed, startling Haku. As you were saying? Naruto asked in a smug tone. How? I didn't even see him move, Haku thought. Undoubtedly surprised, he concluded gravely. Looks like I need to get serious. He charged at the comparatively calm blonde after his ice wings. Much to the surprise of the onlookers, regenerated, he disappeared as his blade was only a few centimeters from Naruto's skin. Haku heard her opponent say, you got to be faster than that, Haku-chan, and when he turned to look behind him, he was standing there as if nothing had happened. He then assumes that Naruto referred to him as a young boy or a girl, but he will never be able to determine which. He unleashes several ice dragons in a single horizontal swing to charge at Naruto, furious at the suffix. If this is all you got, then I'm the one that should be disappointed. I'll admit you were good for your age, but his last master puts you to shame, he said, shocking Haku once more as he easily avoided each one of them as they followed him and collided. Confused, Haku responds, wait, Hiranmaru's last master died long before chakra was introduced. The only way you would have to know him is that you're older than time, or... After saying, if I was one of the Shinigami that fought alongside him, reborn, Naruto concluded for Haku. As everyone looks perplexed, he clarifies, that's right, in my last life I was known as a substitute Shinigami, as at the time spirits that already passed on with high amounts of Riryoku could only be Shinigami. That meant you would have to be already be dead, but during some events I was given the powers from another to save my family. Those monsters you referred to are called hollows, evil spirits that feed on souls whether they are dead and haven't passed on or alive. It was our job to slay them so their soul can be purified and sent to the afterlife, and to escort souls that haven't passed, or as we called them, pluses, otherwise they will turn into those hollows. After a few adventures and mishaps, I had to sacrifice my life to kill another Shinigami that threatened the lives of my friends and family. Wait, you mean to tell me you're the swordsman of the heavens? Everyone exclaimed, looking at Zabuza in confusion, but no one was more shocked than Zabuza. There is a legend in Kiri that's older than the one of the Rakudo Sannin himself. It states that before chakra the gods roamed the heavens and occasionally the mortal realm to protect it from the evil that influenced from hell itself. One day a goddess of snow met a boy, a simple strawberry farmer. At that Naruto grew a tick mark, normally when a god was out working. Here in this case she couldn't be seen except by very few. Soon the boy's 2 sisters were attacked by an evil spirit. The goddess bounded the boy to quickly take care of the threat, but she lost. Luckily the farmer somehow managed to break the bindings to aid the goddess any way he can. In a last-ditch effort, preformed the ultimate taboo. She gave her powers to a mortal. He wielded a blade as tall as he was and as wide as the goddess was. With one swing with his new blade he effortlessly cut the spirit in two. Fearing of the consequences of her actions, she lives with the farmer, coaching him on his duties as a god. After a while she fell for the farmer and vice versa. Afraid of what might happen to him, she runs away to save the wrath of the 13 council of gods being brought down on him. But he found her being captured by one of the gods that hold the 6th seat on the council, as well as his apprentice, saying that she will be executed for her actions. He fought the apprentice valiantly to save her, but as he was about to win, the councilman took away his powers, preventing him from presuming them. Later he was found by an exiled god that ran a candy shop and helps him regain his powers. As it turns out, he's actually a half-god. Later he went to rescue the goddess that helped him with the aid of a cat that held the wisdom of several old men, a farm boy that befriended the other, a priestess that also loves the boy, and an archer that has a vendetta against the gods. When they made it to heaven, they encounter the guardian of the gate, which has been defeated by the boy effortlessly. When they got past the guard, they split up looking for her and encountered countless gods, and ended being picked off and captured one by one till the cat and boy were left. On the day of the execution, when she was about to die, he saved her and fought everyone to make sure she was safe. Later it was revealed that 3 gods on the council betrayed the others and easily defeated everyone and stole something that the goddess was safeguarding for the candy shop owner that should have been destroyed. When he got what he came for, he and his partners, a snake god and a blinded god that wants nothing but peace, ascend to hell to plot his next move. This in turn allowed the half-god to make an alliance towards the 13 council of gods for the war that is to come. Later the fallen one chose to kidnap the priestess for her unnatural healing abilities. This sparked a reaction from the half-god and demanded to save her, but the head god wouldn't hear of it and declared her a traitor. Defying the god's orders, he along with the farmer boy and archer ventured to hell to rescue the girl. They were later met by the goddess of snow and the apprentice of the 6th seat. When they broke into the castle, they split up to find her. During this the half-god realized that he loves her too. He gets killed by the demon of emptiness, only to be saved by the demon of destruction so he could fight him. In the end he won, only to be intercepted by the demon of despair and for the girl to be captured by the demon of loneliness. As he fights the demon of despair, he is aided by the strongest of the council men and killed the demon. He then went to the tower to save the priestess from the demon of despair. It was a grueling battle, but the half-god won just barely. He then went to the war zone in heaven to face the fallen one, only to be distracted by the snake. The fallen one defeated all the gods in his way and went to the mortal realm with the snake. The only ones that were still able to fight were the half-god and his father. They went after the fallen one to find that the snake betrayed him for hurting the love of his life, but he failed. The half-god and the fallen one fought a battle so fierce that it turned mountains into plateaus and plains into valleys. Then with the last of the half-god's power he became his own attack that turned day into night and destroyed the fallen one, but at the cost of his life and afterlife he was never seen again. Legend says that one swing from his blade and it could split the heavens itself, hence the name the Swordsman of the Heavens. Everyone was listening to the story when Naruto shrugged and yelled frantically at the end, causing several people to perspire. Wow, that's pretty accurate given the time that has passed, but to clarify one thing, I lived in a clinic, not on a strawberry farm. Whoever wrote that would be so dead if it wasn't for the fact that they weren't still here. He said, "It doesn't matter now who I was. I'm still Naruto Uzumaki, protector of Konoha, and nothing is going to change that," he said proudly, suddenly becoming serious. Haku awakens from his daze at this point and yells, "Legend or not, I will kill you, for Zabuza-sama." He then conjures up more ice dragons to attack Naruto. He followed them, but this time he moved so quickly that he confused the ice dragons by producing several afterimages. He chooses to taunt his opponent by asking, "What's the matter, Haku-chan? Can't keep up? Why don't I go a little faster?" Since he is moving at unthinkable speeds, even for a Shinigami, Naruto accelerates, creating more afterimages of himself. When Haku has had enough, he swings his sword horizontally in front of the frozen remnants of 2 ice dragons that collided and broke apart into ice needles, similar to the other attack he did for the Uchiha Gunsho Surara. The ice shards launch themselves at all of Naruto's afterimages, but they all shimmer away without revealing any. Blonde, where is he now? He thought, but then he looked everywhere and saw what he assumed to be Naruto's afterimages. She immediately sensed the one with the most Ryotsu and blocked his blade, only to be hit by the others on his sides and back. All he can manage to say is, "HH Hoao. I mixed cage bunchins with my afterimages to catch you off your guard," Naruto explains, and to his surprise, the Haku he cut breaks into ice. "And just in case, I had my Zanyo Ningyo nearby to Kawarimi with it to prepare for this." Naruto says as he notices that he is surrounded by ice pillars from the seat he is above. Looking behind him, he sees Haku outside the circle of ice pillars pointing his Zanpakuto directly at him. "This is the beginning of your end," he says, turning his sword like a key 90 degrees counterclockwise, Senin Hyoro, and the ice pillars close in on Naruto, encasing him in a block of ice. After that, Haku rushes to stab the still-trapped Naruto, Ryusenka, but as soon as he touches the prison, more ice forms then, with a jerk, he breaks all the ice, destroying Naruto, but he survives intact, albeit with frostbite, bruises, and scrapes unexpectedly, he doesn't fall. Instead, he simply remains motionless, his head lowered to conceal his eyes behind his hair. "I'm sorry but it's over," Haku says as he approaches the figure and launches his last blow. Additionally, Naruto's hand literally crushes the bone of the arm the blade is holding. "So the king fucked up again, now didn't he? Well, as long as I'm free," Naruto said, looking up at Haku, who gasped as he began to laugh darkly. He has a maniacal grin and says, "I'll just kill the lot of you, ha 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 ha." His blue eyes have turned sickly yellow with black sclera and a white substance that appears to be forming a mask on the top left side of his face with red markings on the completed part. Just as Haku escapes his hold and Shunpo is far away from the foul Ryotsu, a thick crimson, almost black Ryotsu is being produced from the possessed blonde. "Now I'll show you all how to really use Bankai." Naruto snatches Tensei-Zanjetsu by the chain and swings it like a flail. He then gathers his Ryotsu and inserts it into his blade in a Getsuga Tensho. He then stops swinging it by the chain, catches it in his grip, and swings. Kuroi Getsuga. The foul Ryotsu is headed for a terrified, rigid Haku. Following a good cut from Zabuza, Kakashi feels the foul energy emanating from the blonde. Zabuza asks, "What the hell is going on, Kakashi? This is not regular Ryotsu, let alone chakra that Brad is producing." While holding his cut shoulder, Kakashi could only think of one thing. Could it be the Kyuubi? No, it feels the same, but oddly empty and darker. Later, I'll need to ask Naruto about it. However, at this moment, he pulls out a green scroll, unravels it, draws blood from his thumb wound, spreads the blood across the pages, and then closes it again to hold it while he makes the hand signs of the tiger, snake, dragon, and dog and slams the scroll down on the bridge he is standing on, making it vanish in the bridge. Kachiyose. Doden. Suiga no Jutsu. What will that do? With the mist obstructing your vision and my eyes closed, you can't get me with that Sharingan of yours. Zabuza asks Kakashi. Laughing, then he feels a tremor beneath his feet and out of the ground as 8 different breeds of dogs, all wearing blue capes and Konoha forehead protectors, latch on Zabuza with their sharp canine teeth, immobilizing him. "What?" Zabuza asks. He held his left hand on his right wrist and pointed it at the ground. "I might not be able to see you, but I still can smell you, or more specifically my blood on your blade. All I have to do is make sure that my cute little summons knew what to smell and they found their target. Now then, time to finish this once and for all." He said. It begins to accumulate lightning chakra while he is doing this, becoming visible through the mist. Gazing in awe at the assortment of chakra in Kakashi's hand, Zabuza exclaims, "Impossible. Chakra so concentrated it's visible." In a solemn voice that made even the demon of the mist shudder in fear, he says, "You have the honor of dying by my only original jutsu." While clutching his lightning-covered hand, he then lunges at the motionless Zabuza. Reikari. Returning to the battle a few minutes ago, Haku was struck by the Ryotsu blast, which obscured everyone's vision with a smokescreen. However, that didn't stop the possessed Naruto from charging into the smoke in a frantic attack with roughly 100 clones. The smoke cleared as they were halfway there, exposing a severely battered Haku who was exhausted, with only 2 petals remaining and his wings and tail blown off. Haku is severely wounded by the clones' merciless attack, which prevents him from having a chance to replenish his Bankai. The final petal melted away and returned to its sealed state when he was unable to fight any longer. As Naruto approaches, his mask now covering more than half of his face, Haku bows his head in defeat. It wasn't as much fun as the last time, but it was a good workout. "After I kill you, I'll go for a challenge with Zabuza, then Kakashi and the Teme, then I'll have a little fun with." His right arm then struggles to hold the partially completed mask. "No, not now, I was just getting started," he says. The hand then snatched the white and red mask and tore it off his face. He is now back to normal, clearly out of breath. "Sorry about that, he wasn't supposed to interfere," he said, throwing away the mask and offering Haku a helping hand. Why do you offer the enemy a hand? You're supposed to kill them," exclaimed Haku, merely glancing at him in his extended hand. "I'm now a broken tool. I have no purpose anymore. The kindest thing you can do is kill me." Don't you ever say that about yourself. You are a human being, not a tool. It doesn't matter if you lose one measly fight. Just get back up and continue fighting for who or what you believe in. Naruto yelled at the ice user after he had punched him hard. As he was about to say something, Haku felt a lot of chakra directed at Zabuza. You're right Naruto, but I got to go. Zabuza-sama needs me, he said, getting up slowly and wearing a thoughtful expression. He then left with Shunpo. When he looks up after Kakashi's Reikiri pierces flesh, he is horrified to see that he struck Haku rather than Zabuza. The ice user's body slid out of Kakashi's right hand and onto the ground while he was stunned. No, Haku! He exclaimed when Naruto appeared through Shunpo. Good job Haku, was all Zabuza could say to his dying tool before shaking off the ninkin holding him down while Kakashi was preoccupied with the horror of what he had done. That's all you can say. What the hell is wrong with you? Said Naruto, glaring at the swordsman. Zabuza stated plainly, he was a tool, nothing more. That's all it was. So he really didn't mean anything to you? You meant the world to him. He thought of you as his own father. He fought for you. Your dream of freeing others like him by killing the one responsible. He even took Kakashi's Reikiri to protect you. Says Naruto, clenching his fists until his fingernails are blood-soaked. Zabuza, the demon of the mist, surprises Naruto by sobbing and saying, Naruto, you don't need to say any more. Zabuza, I can't believe you're still alive, said a short, slimy man wearing a business suit, holding a cane with his left arm in a cast, and with spiky gray hair that shows a receding hairline. Suddenly, they hear clapping from the other side of the bridge. Hundreds of thugs that he clearly hired are behind him. What the fuck are you doing here Gato, and what's with the entourage? Zabuza asks, turning to face the midget. Gato hums, the plane has changed. Well actually, I planned to do this from the beginning. I'm going to kill you Zabuza and everyone here. After enjoying Zabuza's expression for a little while, he went on, I never planned to pay you any money. Hiring a ninja from a village is expensive and they may betray me, so I get you missing nins who are easy to take care of afterwards. I have the ninjas battle each other and once they're weakened, I kill them off with numbers. It doesn't cost me anything. Good plan, don't you think? Zabuza begins to glare daggers at the short man, but the shorty ignores him, saying, the only problem in the plan was you Zabuza, the demon of the mist. What a joke, if you ask me. You're just a cute little baby demon. Ha 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 ha. And the horde of bandits just laughed along. Sorry Naruto, this fight is over now that I don't have a reason to go after Tazuna. I have no reason to fight you, Zabuza says, glancing at Naruto before he hefts his sword up his shoulder and picks it up from the ground, to which Naruto grunts. Oh yeah, I owe this one. You squeezed my arm until it broke, Gato says as he approaches the dying Haku in search of retribution. He is about to kick him, but in an instant, Haku is gone, and he is missing the leg he was going to kick with. After a few seconds, he feels the pain and exclaims, ah. He turns to face the ninjas and sees Naruto holding Haku in one hand and Tensa Zangetsu dripping blood in the other. Suffocatingly, he snatches his stump of a leg and glares at the blonde, Wat. Placing Haku down gently, Naruto flares his Ryatsu and walks slowly to the group. Zabuza, why don't you sit this one out? I'll take out the trash, he said, nodding as he remained with his surrogate son. Kill them all, yelled Gato as he scurried away in terror behind his hired help. As Naruto approached the mob, then he noticed the only woman in the group, Hinata, who was holding Sasuke by the shoulder. Accept her, she will prefect for the brothel I plan on opening soon, he said, pointing to her with a perverted smile. I was going to be nice and give you a quick death, but for threatening to take Hinata, my Hinata, for a sleazy brothel I'm not going to be so nice. Then, before anyone knew what was about to happen, he began to shunpo towards the crowd and cut them up one by one. That feeling returned, more suffocating than before. Some of them were sickened by the constant blood and gore, while others watched in wonder and concern. Zabuza exclaimed, damn, he can be ruthless, with amazement. After eliminating the final bandit, Naruto approached Gato while dragging his blade across the ground, causing sparks and leaving a trail of blood. Please don't kill me. I'll give you anything. Land, money, women, the one-legged midget pleaded as he scampered away from the murderer in front of him. After Tensa Zangetsu stabs him in the chest and holds him off the bridge, he yells, listen here you little shit, I don't want anything from you, nor do I plan to let you live after what you've done to this country and its people. He throws him into the air, injects Tensa Zangetsu with Ryatsu, and fires Getsuga Tensho to burn Gato to ensure he never again hurts anyone. He rushed to Haku's side as soon as the mayhem was over and asked, Haku, are you still with us? When Haku looks up at Naruto, he still has a hole in his chest. Why yes. B. But I'm dying. P. Please don't I interrupt as I don't have much time. They remain as silent as possible so that Haku can speak. Z. Zabuza S. Sama. Do you remember the time we found a hidden sea cave of those silver weapons and artifacts? Zabuza said, Hi, I do, as tears streamed from his eyes. G. Give them to Sasuke-san. Hiranmaru said they're his B by right of birth, Zabuza says, nodding in comprehension. Haku pulled out Hiranmaru as Bluenet nodded and said, Also give Naruto-san my scrolls on Riryoku control and Kido, it's like I don't need it anymore. And you with the blue hair, Hinata, right? Hinata looked anxiously at her beloved, and the expression in his eyes told her to trust the dying Shinigami. I want you to have what's left of my Riryoku. Just stab him at the center of your chest and grab all the Riryoku in me, she said, grabbing his Zanpakuto. And Naruto, when I die, Hiranmaru says there's something inside me that you need to grab and protect with your L life. He just says you would kn what it I is, she said before she could begin. Tears fill Naruto's eyes as he gazes at Haku's dying form before turning to Hinata and pointing the blade at her chest, saying, Readyheim. When Hinata says, Hi, she is engulfed in a light that prevents anyone from seeing what is happening. Hinata looks at Naruto with a fire that he knows all too well. The light went out after 30 seconds, and Haku lay there still without Hiranmaru. Hinata appeared to be the same as her, but she was carrying a simple katana with a rectangular tsuba that had a pattern that resembled a vague flame on the long sides and a curved line on the short sides. The corners were inward curved, with curved slits above and below the blade and a series of curved lines embossed on either side of the blade themselves, and is accompanied by a reddish-brown hilt. She picks it up and places it on the left side of her hip by sliding it through the belt that secures her ninja gear. She bows and drops to her knees, saying, Thank you Haku for everything, and may you find peace in the afterlife. As it begins to snow, Naruto puts Zangetsu away and switches back to his Shikai, seemingly as a sign from Haku that he has moved on. The islanders arrive at this point wearing various types of armor, or in Inari's case, kitchenware. He says without glancing at them, Sorry, but it's already over. We won and Gato's dead, therefore Zabuza has no reason to kill us anymore. They are finally free of Gato and his thugs, but the atmosphere made them not want to celebrate. Instead, they paused to pay respect to whoever died. Naruto kneeled down to Haku after Hinata had finished bowing and inserted his hand into the hole made by the rakery in search of something. When he took something out, he couldn't contain his surprise and said, No, it can't be. Hinata asks, What is it Naruto-kun? As she peers over his shoulder and sees him holding a transparent octagonal sphere that contains a bluish-purple substance. He responds shakily, the Hogyoku, it's the thing in the Legion Zabuza told that the snow goddess held. It has the power to sense the hearts of those around it, and to materialize their deepest desires. If this were in the wrong hands, we would be doomed. I've got to put it where no one will be able to get it, and I know of such a place. Sasuke looks at Naruto, anticipating an explanation, and Naruto responds, I'll tell you everything after we lay Haku to rest and settle down. They all agreed, picked up Haku's body, and went to the clearing where Naruto met him. Following Haku's burial, Zabuza visited his hiding place to gather all of the items in his verbal will. He presented Sasuke with silver artifacts that were sealed in storage scrolls. It turned out that the Quincy used these spirit weapons, and Zabuza was unable to read one of the scrolls. But Sasuke was able to read a manual for the spiritual weapons using the Sharingan. Even though he has trained to control his chaotic Riryoku, he will never be able to perform any Kido without it blowing up in his face. Therefore, he gave Naruto the scrolls on Riryoku control and Kido, which he accepted politely. If Hinata is interested, he will simply have her learn the art. They all laughed when Naruto told them Ichigo Kurisaki's story as they sat down, finally understanding why he was so upset about the strawberry farmer incident. They all laughed at how whipped Naruto was after he pouted about it until Hinata told him it was cute and gave him a kiss to calm him down. He described the activities of the Shinigami, thankfully without the shoddy illustrations, and their interactions with the other spirits, such as pluses and hollows, based on his experiences in Karakura Town, the Soul Society, and Hueco Mundo. He has fought many battles and made many sacrifices to keep his friends and family safe. Their respect for him eventually increased, or in Hinata's case, she pulled him into their shared room where they had an incredible makeout session that evening. All of them, including Zabuza, assisted in the bridge's construction during the final few days they spent with the bridge builder. When Naruto killed all of Gato's thugs, there was no need to protect the family because anyone who failed to show up with the other thugs was afraid of what Naruto would do to them. In their free time, they spent time with the family. Naruto would teach Inari Zanjutsu katas. Hinata would assist Tsunami in the kitchen. Sasuke would practice using his spirit weapons, and Kakashi would tell Zabuza, Tazuna, and Hinata about his love for Icha whenever he wasn't working in the kitchen. Even their own book club, IIF, Icha Forever, is centered around that smut they refer to as literature. The entire nation celebrated their freedom with food, beverages, and musical entertainment on the final night. They laughed, danced, and enjoyed themselves in the final moments. Naruto was able to ask Zabuza what he planned to do next. He claims that because he felt his dream would come true without him wearing the Mizukage hat, he wants to retire as a ninja and lead a quiet life. Iruka needs a new assistant anyhow, so Naruto proposed that he join them in Konoha and teach at the academy. When Zabuza asked Naruto where he would stay, he accepted his offer to stay at his clan compound. It was time for them to return to Konoha, and Team 7 and Zabuza were praising their purchases. Inari had Naruto promised to come back sometime, and Tazuna thanked Kakashi to the chagrin of both Tazuna and Inari. Zabuza gave Tsunami a longer hug than was necessary in order to honor the hero who destroyed Gato and his followers on his own to clear the way for peace. The five decided to name the bridge the Great Naruto Bridge as they made their way to the mainland. Without having to travel at a civilian pace, Team 7 and Zabuza returned to Konoha in 3 hours. Katetsu and Izumo, two chunin who typically end up on guard duty after losing a card game to a Hyuga, drawing the short straw, or pissing Anko to want guard duty as the TI, checked them in at the gate. On the opposite side of the village gate is the torture and interrogation building, where she gets her daily fix of dango. They glanced at the extra and gave Kakashi a perplexed look, but he simply dismissed it and told them that Zabuza sought refuge in the village. The 5-person group then headed off in the direction of the Hokage Tower. During the journey, Naruto persuaded everyone to omit the section about Shinigami in general from the report because, if someone like Danzo finds out, he will stop at nothing to capture Naruto or Hinata in an attempt to discover the Shinigami's secrets and gain the power for himself, and that would not be advantageous. Upon arriving, Kakashi presented his mission report and engaged in negotiations regarding Zabuza's assimilation into the shinobi ranks. It was decided that Zabuza would be ranked Jonin after being questioned by Anko Mitarashi, one of the best in the field, and that he would be placed on probation at the Namikaze compound for a month. He also requested to teach at the academy as Iruka's assistant before a team of genin were brought in to teach. The Sandaime gave the team a week off from missions to do whatever they wanted after they were finished, and Zabuza was hauled away by a group of Anbu without the slightest concern for his students. Kakashi left them to fend for themselves. Sasuke worked on his spirit weapon, a pentacle-shaped silver cross with a small enough silver chain to fit around his wrist instead of creating a traditional bow. He uses reishi to create a weapon that resembles a spiderweb. His target, a tree, and the nearby ones are all totally destroyed when he pulls back the fires rather than just one arrow. To accustom himself to the force of his weapon, he smirks and fires once more. Naruto is teaching Hinata the fundamentals of the Shinigami. In order to teach her the fundamental katas of his Zanjutsu style, they first played a game called Flash Tag. Naruto then had her perform Jinzen, or meditations, to connect with her Zanpakuto spirit and strengthen herself. She made contact with the spirit during the week, but she hasn't yet been told her name. When she wasn't doing that, she worked on her Riryoku control. After discovering that it was simple, she proceeded to use the Kido scrolls that Haku had given Naruto as anticipated. Her timidity made Bakudo spells easier for her than Hado, but she is still proficient in both without the incantation. She can currently use the numbers 61 and 8 for Bakudo, but only 33 and 4 for Hado. Naruto returned with shallow cuts, bruises, and a shit-eating grin after sparring with Kakashi or Zabuza when he wasn't teaching Hinata because he was somewhat traumatized by the image of Anko doing Kami knows what to Zabuza. He would always respond, "If I had known Konoha ninja were this kinky, I would have moved here years ago," when Naruto asked him what had happened. Naruto and Hinata are currently enjoying each other's company while strolling around the village on their final day off. "What's with the new hairpieces, hon?" Naruto asked his girlfriend curiously after noticing that she was sporting a set of light blue hairpins shaped like 6-petaled flowers. Hinata is staring at the ground with a sorrowful expression. "Well, they were my last gift to my mother before she passed. I only wear them on the anniversary of her death as a way to remember her. If my father ever saw me with a toy or anything, he would take it away, saying, 'It's unfitting for a Hyuga to act like a child.' So I always carried them but never wore them, afraid he will take away the only thing of my mother left, not counting my sister, of course." Naruto concluded with his sly smile. "Well, they look good on you," Hinata says, blushing at his remark. "And I think you should wear them more often. They really make you look even more beautiful if that were even possible." Hinata, who was still flushed, grinned and said, "I'll wear them more frequently if you think they look good." After saying, "At a girl," Naruto turns to face them and notices a square rock with 2 see-through holes. "Seriously, Konohamaru, a square rock? I swear you are getting worse at hiding every time we meet." He sighs in annoyance at the antics of his unofficial student. This is followed by the rock exploding in smoke and coughing at the sound of 3 people, 2 boys and 1 girl. You added too much gunpowder. I'm not the one that got it in the first place. So, how could I have known it was so strong? 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl, were visible when the smoke cleared. Wearing a yellow shirt with the Konoha symbol in red, gray shorts, a long blue scarf, and a pair of green goggles on his forehead, one of the boys has black eyes, short, spiky brown hair, and a small chip in his tooth. The other boy, dressed in a blue long-sleeved shirt, beige shorts, and goggles, has light brown hair, black eyes behind round glasses, and a nose that seems to be perpetually runny. The girl wears a red tank top over a pink t-shirt layered at the bottom, gray pants, and the traditional ninja sandals. Her orange hair is tied up in 2 very large pigtails with red elastics, and her cheeks have red oval markings. That's what I expect from my rival, said Konohamaru, the person wearing the scarf. It's a funny story of how those 2 met, when Naruto was talking to the Sandame about the corruption in the academy. How most of the teachers would sabotage his tests and keep him out of lectures. Then out of nowhere a younger Konohamaru challenged the Hokage for his title only to trip on his own scarf. Naruto, being the closest one to the kid, blamed his lack of footwork on him, only to be grabbed by the collar by Naruto. That is the scene that Ebisu, a Tokubetsu Jonin with dark hair and round sunglasses that hide his eyes, wearing the standard Konoha shinobi uniform without the flak jacket and his forehead protector as a bandana on his head. He sees the 2 and demands that he, in his own words, unhands the honorable grandson of the Hokage this instant. Konohamaru taunts him by using his status, thinking Naruto was just like the rest, but got decked hard in the face, proving him wrong. Later that day Konohamaru sought Naruto out to train him, only to be flat out declined. After continuously asking for one-on-one lesson from the blonde, he gave in and taught him the basic katas for his zanjutsu stances, which he picked up with some difficulty. During a break from training, Naruto asked Konohamaru why he wanted the old man's title. He answered that he is always referred as honorable grandson, and not Konohamaru, and wanted to be noticed as himself and not to be in the shadow of his grandfather. Naruto told him that was stupid to get recognition instead of getting stronger to protect those close to him, for it was better to be known by the few people that care about him opposed to the thousands of people that don't even know him at all. In the end Ebisu finds them. Konohamaru tries to attack only to be swatted away like an annoying insect. Naruto beating the ever-living shit out of the Tokubetsu Jonin, and Konohamaru declaring that they are rivals. So, Konohamaru, who are your friends? Naruto inquired, having never seen them before. I'm Udon, I like math and stuff, the boy now known as Udon said as the 3 of them struck a pose, with Konohamaru in the center, the other boy to his right, and the girl to his left. I'm Moegi, the sexiest kunoichi in our class, this girl, who is now Moegi, declared. Konohamaru declared, and I'm Konohamaru, aspiring Hokage. And the Konohamaru Army Corps is who we are. They came to a collective conclusion. When they finished their Super Sentai pose, Naruto's perspiration stopped and he said, okay, before snapping back to reality and asking, so, what do you guys want? Please let us play ninja with you, Naruto Ni-san, asks Konohamaru, their unofficial leader. And they all sealed the deal by using the puppy dog eyes instead of jutsu. She giggled softly, it's okay Naruto-kun, I wouldn't mind if we play with your friends, he heard her say, letting out a breath. He didn't know Naruto didn't want to break up with Hinata to play ninja, and he didn't know how to say no without looking like a complete ass in front of her. At last, Konohamaru spots the girl he is strolling with and says, hey boss, who is that? After that, he connects the dots, asking, is she yours, you know? He offers his mean girlfriend his pinky. Naruto flushes and perspires anxiously. On the one hand, he tells him that they are secretly dating and that if he tells someone else, their secret is no longer secret, making Hinata a target and endangering her. On the other hand, if he says no, he would offend Hinata and she would be so upset that she would end their relationship, and he couldn't lose her. In any case, he couldn't win if he said anything. Fortunately, Hinata spoke first. Hello. My name is Hinata, and yes, we are dating, she said. Then she smiled sweetly, frightening the Konohamaru Army Corps men and Naruto a little. The latter was reminded of Unohana Taicho's smile, which threatens death if you don't listen, and I would appreciate it if you don't tell anyone about our relationship as we aren't ready to reveal it to the public yet, she said. They both said, "Oh of CC course and Namikaze-sama," while trembling in terror and embracing each other. Moegi said, "You're so awesome, when I get older I want to be just like you," as she gazed at Hinata with admiration. Hinata, who isn't used to receiving such praise, blushes. It was nothing. Really, she said softly as she pressed her index fingers together. So, we still playing Ninja Boss? Konohamaru asks after the small pair stops trembling in terror. With a tiny smile, Naruto says, "Sure kid, whenever you're ready." They played a game that was similar to hide and seek, except that instead of just finding someone, you had to hit them with a cardboard kunai or shuriken. As Konohamaru was running to an alleyway, he bumped into a mass of black, and then someone lifted him up by the collar. He could see that the person was obviously male, wearing a black outfit with a circle that was half yellow and half red, a hood with 2 points at the ends that resembled cat ears, a metal plate with an hourglass carved into the metal in place of the leaf for Konoha Ninja, and, as if that weren't strange enough, he had some kind of purple makeup on his face and a large item that was wrapped in bandages hanging on his back like Naruto's Zangetsu. The strange foreigner interrupts his thoughts, saying, "Hey, look where you're going, you little shit." Sarcastically remarks, "Wow, a grown man wearing makeup and kitty pajamas, with a blank expression that shows no signs of intimidation. I'm terrified that you'll make me lose my virginity." Said man became red in the face and behind him Konohamaru heard hysterical laughter. When he looked he found a girl about the same age as the boy with green eyes and dirty blonde hair held up in 4 ponytails. She is wearing a single light purple-colored, off-the-shoulders garment that extended to halfway down her thighs, with a scarlet sash tied around her waist. In addition to incorporating fishnet worn over her shoulders and legs, specifically on her right calf and her left thigh, she also wore her black forehead protector around her neck with the same insignia as the boy she is with. On her back is a giant black object that looks like a 2x4 and a katana with a red hilt and a square tsuba fastened by her scarlet sash, and she is on the ground laughing her ass off, muttering the words, "Makeup, kitty pajamas, and virginity," over and over for a few minutes. When she finally calmed down, the boy tightened his grip on Konohamaru. "I was going to be nice, but after that comment I'm not going to be so merciful," he said in a deadly tone. The girl said, "Stop Kankuro, before he gets here," and she acted as though she was terrified of the man. The now identified Kankuro said, "Calm down, Tamari, I'll teach this punk a lesson faster than you can say sandstorm." Just as he is about to retract his free fist, he sees the tip of a huge black and silver blade inches from his face. He heard a chilly voice say, "If I were you, I'd let go of the Hokage's grandson," and he turned to see Naruto pointing the blade at Konohamaru. "Why should I, too?" Kankuro remarked cockily, believing he could defeat Naruto. Naruto simply said, "Look down." Kankuro followed Naruto's instructions and discovered a katana blade protruding between his legs, ready to either cut him in half or cut off the very thing that made him a man. At first, he assumed that whoever was behind him didn't have the stomach to do either of those things because it was likely a genin, and being the sexist that he is, he assumed it was a male. However, it was Hinata who was holding the katana, ready to cut up his balls whenever she pleased. Hinata addresses the ninja with a lethal tone, saying, "Drop Kono-chan or you'll lose the only thing that identifies you as a man, puppet boy." He released Konohamaru in shock, and the boy scurries over behind Naruto with the 2 other Konohamaru Army Corps members. Kankuro stammers, How?" Hinata simply pointed to her Byakugan-activated eyes and sheathed her sword, while Naruto followed suit and came back to join him as Konohamaru was released. He chose to make fun of the foreigner by saying, "Wow, makeup, hood with kitty ears and likes to play with dolls. Since Naruto was Naruto, you have a boyfriend back home. What comes next?" Before Kankuro loses his temper, Tamari corrects him, saying, "He's not gay." Kankuro thanks her, but she goes on to say, "He's a gender-confused baka." A dark and melancholy rain cloud hovers over him as he has his head down and says in a melancholy voice, "Not you too, Nay-san." This made everyone laugh hard at the jab his own companion sent him, which made the dirty blonde laugh even harder. "You must be a local, because this is our first time here for the Chunin exams and my brother and I are helplessly lost," Tamari said, smiling as she approached our blonde hero after everyone had calmed down. Jackpot, she thought as she gave Naruto a quick glance. She tried to woo the Shinigami by saying, "I was hoping that a strong local, like you, could escort a little foreigner, like me, around this big village so I wouldn't get lost again." But before he can respond, Hinata appears in front of him and gives Tamari a menacing glare. "Hussy, what are you doing to my man?" she inquired. "Who are you referring to as hussy, Haim, and what do you mean by your man?" Tamari retorted. "At least I don't have my hair up in a ridiculous style. Like you're the one to talk, with short hair like that. I thought you were a boy. Tramp. Pampered, skank, shrimp. HN, Dobie," he said as he jumped from the tree he was sitting on and approached the group. Sasuke was wearing the same outfit, but he was dressed entirely in white with a blue trim and a hint of gold. He had his Quincy cross on his right wrist, a ninja pouch around his waist, and what looked like thin, silver-colored weapons hanging behind him. Curious, Naruto asks, "Teme, why were you sitting on a tree branch while Konohamaru was in trouble?" "I saw Sasuke in that tree a long time ago. I took a break because I was training close by. I came over here after hearing the commotion. You and Hinata had it under control when I was about to do something then." As if talking about the weather, he said, "I liked the show." Naruto nods in agreement. When the name-calling eventually stops, Hinata pulls out her Zanpakuto and asks, "Samurai duel to the death?" she inquired. With her own sword in hand, Tamari said, "Bring it on." A haunting voice says to Tamari, "Enough Tamari, you and Kankuro are a disgrace to our village," as a heavy pressure, not as heavy as Naruto's, engulfs them before they can engage. The person who spoke up couldn't have been older than Naruto, and he was just as short. He had red, short, spiky hair, turquoise eyes surrounded by dark eye rings, and a white jacket that was slightly open to reveal a hole in his chest where his heart should have been. He also wore white hakama pants with the same metal plate as the other two, black tabi and white zori for shoes, a bone-like substance on his forehead that resembled a pair of dog ears, a katana with a sand-yellow hilt, a circular tsuba, and a white sheath fastened on his waist by the sash. Naruto asked himself, "How is there an Arrancar here? I thought that hollows could no longer enter the mortal realm." At this point, Zangetsu added, "I don't know how, but I suspect this is the work of someone who knew what they were doing. Otherwise, we would have at least heard something about hollow activity in the elemental nations. Do you think if it's possible that I was reincarnated, that Aizen would be as well?" Naruto asked his faithful companion after giving the revelation some thought before his eyes widened in horror. "I mean, he is the only person capable of something this big," he said. Zangetsu cautioned our protagonist, "It seems possible, but not very likely, but be cautious from now on because if it's true he could be anyone, even the people you trust the most." "Will do, old man," Naruto said, putting an end to their inner dialogue. Tamari found the boy behind her and gave him a tense look before saying, "GG Gaara, it's not what it looks like." Gaara says, "Shut up or I'll eat you." Before she can defend herself, he then turns to face the Konoha shinobi and bows formally, saying, "I apologize for the way my siblings behaved in your village. I'm from Gaara, which is more commonly known as Gaara del Desierto, and Tamari and Kankuro are my siblings. Kuroi Getsu no Naruto. I've heard a lot about you in the bingo books. You are an A-class shinobi even though you are a rookie genin." After a moment of shock, Naruto exclaimed, "Wow, I just turned 13 and I'm already in the bingo books. I'm not sure if I should be proud of myself or take extra care going forward. In any case, these are Sasuke Uchiha and Hinata Namikaze, my teammates. Is it accurate to say that you are taking the Chunin exams this year?" The Shinigami was told by Gaara, "Yes, we are here for that event." Naruto stated, "Then with luck we'll be seeing each other in the exams," in a tone that was demanding. "If we ever meet in battle, Mother will have your blood and I'll have your soul." Naruto Uzumaki, Gaara said, turning away from the Konoha shinobi he was speaking to. He then turned to his siblings and said, "Tamari, Kankuro, we're leaving." His siblings hurried away. Team 7 is waiting for Kakashi at the Namikaze compound training ground, but one of Naruto's clones discovered him at the Hokage office talking to the Hokage about something he couldn't get out but knew exactly what it was, and he expected him to nominate them or he would beat him so severely that if he had any descendants, they would feel it. He halted his thoughts when a cloud of smoke burst across the clearing, and Kakashi emerged. "I apologize for being late, but I had to avoid the purple elephants that are trying to kill me," he said, and they just stared at him, not believing him. "I'm kidding," he said. "I had to get it out of my system whenever I could because I no longer get to use my excuses in any case. I nominated you for the Chunin exams, which is why I'm late," he says, pulling out 3 tickets for his team to take. "You must arrive at the Academy Room 301 by Monday at noon at the latest. Don't come if you don't think you're prepared to take the tests." He waves languidly before vanishing in a puff of smoke, saying, "You now have the rest of the day off, Yane." The 3 members of Team 7 went to study for the impending test after giving each other glances and nods as though they were communicating silently. On this day of the Chunin exams, Team 7 enters the academy, climbs the stairs, and reaches the 2nd floor, where they see 2 genin guarding room 301, from a boy with giant black eyes, thick eyebrows, and a bowl cut of black hair, dressed in a green spandex bodysuit, tacky orange leg warmers, a red forehead protector that doubles as a belt, bandages wrapped around both hands and wrists, and a regular katana with an oval tsuba that has what appear to be 3 small teardrops in relief on the top and bottom end in a blue sheath. He is accompanied by a girl with brown eyes, black hair in Chinese-style buns on either side of her head, brown eyes, a pink sleeveless blouse, dark green pants, and a Stander's Konoha forehead protector. Naruto noticed that she might be of Chinese descent based on her clothing. Sasuke was about to summon the apparent genjutsu, but Naruto grabbed his shoulder to stop him and shook his head, telling him not to do it. They then went to the examiner room on the 3rd floor to avoid drawing any attention to themselves so that the exams would be easier. On their way there, they failed to notice a boy with dark brown hair, fair skin, and eyes that resembled Hinata's. He was wearing a black forehead protector that he wore snugly over his forehead, a khaki shirt, dark brown shorts, blue shinobi sandals, bandages wrapped around his right arm, chest, and right leg, and a sword with a simple cross guard, a 4-pane window that had a bronze guard with lavender hilt wrapping and a white sheath. The examining room was crowded with genin hopefuls when they arrived, and because they didn't appear to be very amiable, they were ignored. A few minutes later, they heard a familiar voice call out to Sasuke. "Sasuke-kun. I really missed you, and I adore the new outfit," Ino says, attaching herself to Sasuke with a purple blur. "It's really fashionable." A pink blur was attached to him before he could say, "Get off my Sasuke-kun, Ino pig." Sakura was affixed to the opposite side when Sasuke turned to face it. "Why do you feel envious that I received this forehead first?" Ino asked in such a charming way. "Up yours, porker. Just get off Sasuke-kun." Sakura glares at her opponent. "Billboard brow, please." Ino retaliated with a blast. When Sasuke finally had enough, he said, "Will you two get off of me already?" And they obeyed like trained dogs. When it subsided, he heard his male teammate snicker. "What?" Sasuke snarled. Naruto erupted in laughter at the Uchiha's bucket face after saying, "Why don't you apply for the CRA to rebuild your clan? After all, you got a head start with those two." Sasuke responds almost instantly, "If I'm going to apply for that, it's not going to be with those two." Another familiar voice says, "Man, you guys are in the exams too. This just got more troublesome," and they turn around to see Shikamaru and Choji following. Naruto sees that Shikamaru has 2 swords strapped to his left waist, both of which are in a blue sheath and have a rectangular crossguard with lines and cherry petals. The only difference is that one is slightly shorter than the other, suggesting that the two are a daisho pair. He couldn't help but shrugged off the thought that he had seen those swords before. With reference to his new swords, Naruto remarked, "Everything is too troublesome for you, Shikamaru, and I thought that included Zanjutsu." He simply replies, "It is, but they won't leave me alone, so it would be less troublesome if I just take them with me." Raising an eyebrow, Naruto said, "Well, if you have free time, I could teach you the basics so they don't become dead weight, and I know you view that as troublesome as well." Naruto was offering to teach him because he had a suspicion that something wasn't right. "Even though I hold the Hogyoku, it's only been a week since I swallowed it, and I've only been here, so there is no way that this many Zanpakuto should be manifesting already." Zanjetsu answered his master, "Then we need to tread carefully because I have a bad feeling of what is coming." "So everyone's here, alright, the rookie 9 is back together, baby," said an annoying voice behind them. As Zanjetsu finished speaking, everyone turned to see Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino approaching the group, but Naruto's eyes widened in surprise when he saw Kiba. "Is that Zabumaru?" asked Naruto, referring to the seemingly ordinary katana strapped to his side in a red sheath with a bronze tsuba that had a jagged design on it. "There's no mistaking it, that's Zabumaru," Zanjetsu informed him. "I sense the same Riryoku that Zabumaru emitted back in the day." "What's next? The Espada coming back to this world? Well, this is just perfect. First there's Hiramaru, then an Arankar, Zanpakutos appearing left and right, and now Zabumaru," Naruto thought cynically. In his lecture-style voice, Zanjetsu warned, "Be careful what you say because it might come back to haunt you." Yay, whatever, old man," Naruto said, interrupting his conversation when he noticed Kiba sneaking up on Hinata as she was reading her book. He felt a surge of rage and wanted to confront the mud to stop his advances, but was reminded that their relationship is a secret to avoid raising suspicions, so he would have to trust that Hinata would handle it on her own. However, he would intervene if Kiba became too aggressive toward her. Otherwise, he could only observe. When Kiba was close enough to Hinata, he said in a cocky way, "So, Hinata, do you want to join me in celebrating by going out to barbecue because I'm so awesome after I pass this exam and become Chunin?" With a blank expression akin to that of a one-eyed sensei, Hinata simply looks at Kiba from her stories and says, "I apologize, Kiba-san, did you say anything?" and immediately resumed reading. Even the emotionless Shino was intrigued by this new Hinata that stands in front of them, but everyone's jaws are on the ground, with the exception of the males Team 7, who are laughing uncontrollably. They are wondering what happened to the courteous, timid, and shy Hinata to act in such a manner. The green guy from earlier, who looks like a Hyuga based on the eyes, shows up with the Chinese girl before they can question her as they get close to the Rookie 9. The green guy says enthusiastically, "Hello Naruto-kun. I'm happy that your flames of youth haven't been extinguished enough to prevent you from making it to these youthful exams. Nice to see you too, Lee, and I would be betraying my Nindo if I didn't make it," he says, and everyone there, with the exception of Naruto, gave the boy a strange look. Some even scooted away in fear of the bizarre boy. And his teammates looked ashamed despite the other Hyuga's constant glare at Hinata. "You really eliminated a lot of competition that way, by the way, and nice show downstairs." "Thanks, Naruto-kun. Your youth is limitless." Happy with the compliment, Lee said. "How's your Zanjutsu coming along since the last time we spared Tenten?" Naruto asks the trio's Kunoichi. Smiling confidently, the girl, now known as Tenten, said, "I've gotten so good that I'm teaching Lee here and he's come a long way." "Is that correct?" "As it happens, I've also been teaching someone, and in just 1 week, she's made great progress." With a challenging tone, Naruto said, "Perhaps we should have them spar to see who the better master is," drawing Hinata closer. The Hyuga boy sneered, "Pathetic, she's destined to lose, so why bother?" before Tenten could accept the challenge. "And what is that supposed to mean, Neji?" Naruto growled as he glared at the Hyuga. Unfazed by Naruto's menacing gaze, she said, she and her equally weak sister were destined to be sold into slavery because they were unfit to serve the Hyuga clan. "Like you, once a failure, always a failure," he remarked, seemingly referring to the weather. Although Naruto's anger has escalated and he is unconsciously releasing Ryotsu, none of the group members appear to be affected. "You want to take this outside Hyuga-san," he said, practically spitting out Hyuga-san as if it were poison. "Keep it down, will ya?" he said, making his presence known, but before it could get out of hand, an older boy with black eyes behind a pair of circular glasses, long silver hair in a ponytail, and a Konoha forehead protector on his forehead is seen wearing dark purple pants, blue sandals, a shuriken holster on his right leg, a white undershirt, fingerless gloves with armored plates on the back of the hand, and a white cloth waistband worn at an angle. "Why should we look at it?" Kiba inquired. "First it's Kabuto, and second is because look around, you're attracting attention to yourselves," the Konoha ninja said. Pointing to the hundreds of other ninja taking the test, however, they avoid making eye contact because they are afraid of them. "To be honest, this is the kind of attention that will help you keep alive," Naruto said to Kabuto with a straightforward voice. "So Kabuto, you seem to know what you're doing, so I assume that you've already taken the exams already." Suddenly, Kabuto appears apprehensive, but not in the suspicious sense. Rather, he appears embarrassed. "Actually, this is my 7th time taking them," he said, laughing uneasily. Kiba remarked, "Man, you must suck," Shikamaru went on, "or they're that difficult, troublesome. Despite that, I do collect information during the exams as a hobby and record it into these info cards. I even have information on all you guys," Kabuto says. Pulling a deck of cards out of his pocket, he added, "You tell me what you want information on, and I'll show you, because I'm feeling giving today." "Can you provide us with information about the specific ninja taking the tests?" Naruto inquired. "Who are you referring to?" Kabuto inquired with a curious tone. Naruto uttered, "Gaara del Desierta, and Naruto Uzumaki," Kiba concluded, curious about his rival for Namikaze's affections, the young Hyuga. "Ah, you already know their names," Kabuto said, feigning a pout, and then he pulled out 2 cards, placed his index and middle fingers on them, and channeled his chakra into them, revealing the stats of the 2 individuals. "Let's see, first we got Gaara del Desierta, the youngest son of the Yondaime Kazekage, who is on a team with his older siblings Tamari and Kankuro. He completed an unspected number of D ranks, 8 C ranks, and, wow, a B rank as a genin since he is from a foreign nation. Not much is known about him, but it is said that he returned from every mission without even getting scratched. This alarmed many of the genin, with the exception of Team 7, of course. Everyone who had never heard of Naruto Uzumaki, also known as Kuroi Getsu no Naruto in the A rank section of the bingo books, stared at him in wonder, fear, and in one Hyuga's case, jealousy. On Team 7 with Sasuke Uchiha and Hinata Namikaze, completed 40 D ranks, both a B and an A rank, the B just before he graduated. He defeated Zabuza the Demon of the Mist, a former swordsman of the Mist, in Kenjutsu. He is as fast as Konoha's Kiroi Senko, and his strikes are so strong that they are said to be able to split the ocean in 2 with a single blow. Kabuto said in complete shock. He even has a run-on-site order for Chunin and below, which made the people listening to the conversation tired of the boy, Konoha, Suna, Aim, Taki, Otto, to take the tests. A large number of exceptional genin from different hidden villages are present. There isn't much information available because Otogakure is a small village that was established just a year ago, but the other villages are populated by proteges and the like. Suddenly, Kabuto attacked a few kunai, but a hunching figure with every part of his body except his left eye appeared in front of him and swiped at him, missing. He was wearing a long-sleeved, large poncho, a snake-patterned scarf around his neck, a forehead protector with an eighth note carved into it, a straw raincoat sticking out from the back of his scarf, and a large amplifier on his right arm that looked like an oversized gauntlet. At first, nothing happened, but a few seconds later, Kabuto's glasses broke, causing him to double over and throw up his last meal. Sakura and Hinata assisted Kabuto. A male figure with dark eyes and spiky hair stands right next to the hunched figure's flanks. He is wearing a beige shirt with 2 black stripes and 3 prints of the kanji for death down the front. His forehead protector is made of a worn-out metal and has a face guard that resembles the Nidaime Hokage's but is not a part of it. He is also wearing a scarf with a snake pattern around his neck. The female wears a pale green vest that somehow resembles a flak jacket, snake-patterned pants and scarf, and a forehead protector. She has black eyes and very long black hair that almost reaches the ground, tied at the end with a violet ribbon. Put this into your cards. Otto will dominate these exams and nothing is going to stop us, said the man with the spiky hair in an overconfident tone. A puff of smoke burst from the room before Naruto could react, and a rough, menacing voice that made the majority of the Chunin hopefuls shit themselves yelled, "Listen up and shut the fuck up, you little shit stains." A mess of Konoha ninja are revealed themselves when the smoke clears, but the one in front of them is the most terrifying of all. At least not to Naruto and Gaara, who have already encountered innumerable hollows and Arankars in their past lives, and the latter because he is an Arankar himself. Wearing a gray button-up shirt, black pants that are different from those of other people in this universe, steel-toed boots, a pair of black leather gloves, a black trench coat over his outfit, and a forehead protector that is worn as a bandana on his head to conceal the fact that he is either bald or extremely scared on his cranium. The man is a large, intimidating figure that is complemented by a rugged head and face covered in old wounds and scars. After a tense silence that was clearly intentionally maintained by the bear-like man, he says, "Thanks for waiting," after giving each examiner a blank stare that terrified the living daylights out of the participants. Ibiki Morino, the first proctor of the Chunin exams, says, "You 3, I know you were eager, but you will follow my rules while you are in my exam," he says, pointing to the Otto team. "Do you understand that there won't be any fighting unless I permit it, and even if I do permit it, there won't be any killing? I apologize, but this is our first time in the exams and we got a little carried away," says the group's hunched mother. "I'll overlook it this one time, but you're going to be kicked out if I catch you breaking the rules." Ibiki addressed the genin-filled room. "Now, each of you will come up one at a time to get your seating arrangement for the first part, which is a written exam." To Hinata's chagrin, Naruto was seated next to an unidentified shinobi on his left and a flirting Tamari on his right after everyone had taken their seats. "All right, before we get started, pay close attention to the test's rules. 10 points are awarded at the beginning, 1 for each question. However, because this test employs a subtract system, you lose a point if you answer incorrectly. The total score of your team then determines your chances of passing in order to weed out the weak for the next section," he said. "The third rule is that if you are ever caught by the testing officers doing something suspicious, like cheating, you will be penalized with 2 of your points subtracted from your total score every time, so there will be some who lose all their points to be escorted out of my testing ground." As the genin join in on Ibiki's fun, one of the officers remarks, "We'll have our eye on you guys. Be proud, ninjas. You are attempting to attain your new rank as Chunin, and the people who are caught cheating are the ones who are lied to." After 45 minutes into the test, the final question will be distributed. Lastly, those who cheat or give the wrong answer will lose all of their points, and their 2 teammates will also fail. "You have an hour," he concluded, causing anxiety in the majority of the attendees. Start. And everyone began to scribble away after flipping their papers over. What? These questions can't be answered by a mere genin, Naruto thought as his eyes widened at the flip. Zangetsu proposed to his master that there might be more to it than first appears. Yay, look underneath the underneath. I know, Naruto said in response to his sword, silently scanning the room to discover that everyone was cheating, while some had already been called for cheating 5 times on top of that. If there was one thing Ichigo Kurosaki feared more than Naruto Uzumaki now, it was that woman, who, despite her laid-back demeanor, would get his ass kicked from here to Sunday if he ever cheated in front of Ochi-sensei. So why not make the most of your high school education? Zangetsu proposed. You're right, thanks again, old man, Naruto said to his partner before beginning to work on the test and making sure that only his teammates would cheat on him, or at the very least, that the cheater would be sufficiently exposed to be removed from the test. He finished after about 30 minutes, only missing 2 of the 9 questions that were available and that he was unable to easily answer. He then turned over his paper and withdrew to his mindscape to spar with Zangetsu in order to kill time and protect himself from Ino's clan jutsus, which are known to infiltrate the mind. Ibiki speaks to the remaining participants after the test has been going on for 45 minutes at this point. Kankuro chose to return from the restroom with a somewhat strange-looking Chunin escort, saying, "Nice timing. Did you have fun playing with your dolls? It's time for the 10th question, but before I give it to you I'd like to go over the additional rules." Tamari and Kankuro both gave this a startled look. However, the ninja present will never forget what Naruto says next. "I didn't know you swung both ways." The Genin and Chunin officers laughed, and even Ibiki laughed a little. The only people who did not laugh were red-faced Kankuro and a stoic Gaara. "I'm not bisexual," he roared. Naruto responds, "Who said I mean that you're bi? I meant that you like small boys and older men." After he has stopped laughing, "Do you like to penetrate? Tell me." "No. You're a masochist, then?" "Yes, but I mean no. It is unnecessary to deny it. We will not think less of you if you simply come out of the closet." "I'm not in the closet at all. Baka." "Oh, so you already came out already. Congratulations. When this is over, I'm going to kill you. You can try, Puppet Boy, you can try." Before Kankuro could respond, he said, "That's enough. You two, even though that was entertaining, we still have a test to finish." Ibiki snickered at Puppet Boy and said, "So, get back to your seat, Puppet Boy." On his way back to his seat, Kankuro gave Naruto a death glare that would have made Gaara proud, but he also gave Tamari the answers. "Now before you take the 10th question, you have a choice of whether you're going to take it or not," Ibiki said slowly to frighten the Genin, but he was unaware that they were still giggling at Kankuro. "If you don't take it, your points will automatically reduce to 0 along with your teammates," he said, waiting to continue for dramatic effect, expecting someone to say something about it, but all he heard was snickering from both the Genin and the Chunin. "If you decide to take it and fail, you will be banned from the Chunin exams for life." He finished, and to his irritation no one even listened to him. How in the hell is it possible that I, Ibiki Morino, can't scare off mere Genin? Then he remembered when it stopped working, that cheeky little smart ass. He made fun of that puppet kid not only to humiliate him but to not only break the tension that I worked so hard to create during the test, but to also lighten up the mood to a point that it's impossible to add anymore while that moment is still in their head. "Well-played, blonde, well played," he said the last sentence with a slight smile. Not seeing any point to continue the silence, he says, "For those of you that are still here, congratulations for passing the first part of the Chunin exams." Some people are confused on what just happened while others are asking about the 10th question. There was no 10th question, unless you count whether to take it or not. The 10th question, he answered for the curious Genin, which resulted in outroars of how the other 9 were useless. The other questions weren't useless, they had already fulfilled their objective, which was to assess your capacity for information gathering. "We had 2 Chunin pretend to be examiners to help you because you couldn't do it alone." He takes off his forehead protector to show a bald head with scars and screw holes that are clearly the result of torture. "But those who cheat poorly fail, of course, because in time, information is more important in life." Before he replaced his headgear, he stated, "And on the field, anyone will risk their own life to get their hands on it. If the enemy or anyone else who isn't in LA notices you, there's no guarantee the information will be accurate." When the others asked him about the 10th question, he replied, "If there's one thing to keep in mind, it's that important information in your hands can be a powerful weapon for your comrades and your village." The 10th question was the important part of the test, which I'm sure one of you figured out if the stunt he pulled was anything to go by, he said. "Yes, initially I thought that in order for us to even have a chance at answering these questions, we would have to cheat. However, it struck me when I remembered the lessons I had learned during my time at the academy. As you can see, even though I wasn't the smartest student in the class, I learned a lot from the streets, mostly about how to distinguish between a bluff and the real thing. I've been in more fights than a seasoned jonin by the time I turned 8, most of which have been over food and other things that you all take for granted. And some people over there might appear tough, like Scarface. However, they are nothing more than a gigantic teddy bear if they speak down to you rather than simply grabbing the food." After recognizing the intimidation, I dispelled it by making everyone laugh so hard that they forgot their worries and heedlessly moved on. He looked at Kankuro and said, And thanks for being a good sport. I'll send you a bottle of lotion as a peace offering. Humiliating Puppet Boy was just a bonus, Naruto said. But in reality, when Zangetsu suggested that he put his high school education to good use, he remembered the fight he was always dragged in by idiots who made fun of his hair color. They used intimidation tactics on him so many times that he knew when they were just acting brave to get him to comply, it didn't work. Oh, it was no problem at all. Kankuro says modestly, surprised. Thank you also for the lotion. Wait a minute, I've been running out of some before he was relisted. He fell into a verbal trap. And now everyone is making fun of him once more. I don't understand one more thing, though. If you were aware of the actual test, why did you fill out your paper with the answers? A curious Ibiki inquired. Who said I wrote all the answers on the paper? This is what I did for 30 minutes before falling asleep, Naruto said rhetorically, picking up his paper and displaying what he had written. In this case, a teddy bear with Ibiki's face on it. Don't you think it's pretty good? He questioned the proctor, who had a tick mark on his forehead. The officers were joking that the head of IT, interrogation and torture, was depicted as a teddy bear, but the man's stern look silenced them. Before Ibiki could choke the blonde, a giant black ball smashed through the window and erupted in a puff of smoke, revealing a woman with violet hair in a short, spiky, fanned ponytail and light brown eyes. She is wearing a fitted mesh bodysuit that reaches from her neck to her thighs, a dark orange miniskirt, a forehead protector, a small pendant that resembles a snake's fang on a thick cord, shin guards, and a dark blue belt around her waist that connects to her skirt with an appendage-like sash. A black banner behind her reads, "Heads up, boys and girls, this is no time to be celebrating. Your next proctor will be me, Mitarashi Anko. Are you prepared for the second exam? Well done. Then follow me and let's go." After saying that, the woman looked at Naruto's drawing and started rolling around on the ground, laughing uncontrollably, much to Ibiki's embarrassment and annoyance. About 10 minutes later, when Anko appears to be recovering from her outburst of laughter, Ibiki asks, "Are you done yet?" "Hey, hold on." In between giggles, she says, "Haha, can't haha." Breath. After she settles down, she can finally see the remaining genin clearly. 78. You left 26 teams, Ibiki. This time, the test was too simple, she shouted. Or we had a lot of outstanding ones this time, especially that blonde smart ass, Ibiki replied. Naruto yelled, "Thank you, Scarface," to get Anko's attention. In addition to calling you that, he had the audacity to depict you as a teddy bear. Anko remarked, "I already like him," which made Ibiki gag at the idea of the two of them together. He remarked, "Just get them out of here, I need to vent," in reference to questioning the most recent inmates. She looked at the genin and said, "Okay, follow me to the next testing ground." After Anko mockingly saluted and said, "We'll do Scarface," which caused Ibiki to groan in disapproval. She also added, "If it makes you feel any better, the teams will be cut in half." To reassure her IT partner, "Was it Naruto?" "Yeah," genin replied. "What is it? Are you able to portray a Black Widow in Kurenai?" She made the others look bad by asking, "Sure," Naruto replies, "but I'll have to give it to you after the exams," she said. Fair enough, and they continued on to the next section of the tests without realizing the risks that Team 7 would face.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.